Chapter 1408. Han Fei inherited the position of the Supreme Commander and immediately felt the scene when he planned the City of Justice. At that time, he and Shimin Linglan were extremely busy. It was even harder than cultivating. They didn't even have time to rest. Han Fei certainly wouldn't devote all his time to the planning and construction of the Scattered Stars Island. At this moment, in the Marshal's mansion, there were 7 or 8 plates of fruit on the table, and sitting opposite him was none other than Shueishenqi. Yesterday, representatives of the major families, including the 6 venerables, visited Han Fei together, intending to negotiate with him. However, Han Fei flatly refused. It could be said that they had turned hostile on the spot. The group of people left after being scolded. Han Fei threatened that if he came again without bringing resources, he would be the enemy of the millions of people on the Scattered Stars Island. It must be noted that the millions of people on the Scattered Stars Island were not from the 36 towns. Everyone here was an elite. Today, the aristocratic families had yet to arrive. Han Fei invited Shueishenqi over for a chat. In the past few days, Han Fei had been troubled by a few questions and wanted to ask Shueishenqi for help. Marshal Shui, I've been really busy these days. I have too many questions in my heart. I want to ask Marshal Shui to answer them. Shueishenqi said with a sullen face, "First of all, I am not the Supreme Commander now. After all, we are not familiar with each other. You can call me Mr. Shui. What's the matter? Feel free to speak your mind." Han Fei grinned. "I think Mr. Shui must be confused. I went to the Empyrean waterfall. Why am I in the Sea of Pearls?" Shueishenqi nodded. "Yes. You can't have come from the Scattered Stars Island. It can only mean that there's a channel below the Empyrean waterfall that connects to the Sea of Pearls." Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. Shueishenqi was really bold. But that was the logic. Since you didn't take the main road, you must have taken a shortcut. Han Fei immediately asked, "Mr. Shui, do you know what kind of creature is buried under the Empyrean waterfall?" Shueishenqi shook his head. "I don't know. But since you went down, didn't you take away the king's corpse?" Han Fei thought to himself, "I did take away most of the things inside." The world where the demonic essence of the cloud whale's corpse was hidden returned to reality. Now, apart from that body, there was only some diluted spirit awakening fluid left. After decades of accumulation, perhaps the quantity of spirit awakening fluid would increase again, and he would be able to collect it continuously. However, the great battle was imminent, and there was clearly no time for that. The only thing that could be used now was the massive carcass of the cloud whale. If they were to be used to refine divine weapons, how many tens of thousands of them could be refined from these corpses? But how could the corpses of kings only be used to make weapons? Regardless of whether it was the corpses of kings or supreme experts, they were all used to study, drink blood, eat flesh, comprehend great bones, and experience the great Tao. This was where everyone's goal lay. This was especially so for the king bone, which was the essence of the great path. If he could comprehend it, then no matter if it was the grand Tao or the comprehension of the king realm, it would be extremely helpful. With the last experience, Han Fei could go there at any time. However, he was not impatient to comprehend it. The cloud whale's corpse was right there. It couldn't run away. On the other side of the 10,000 Demon Valley, Han Fei didn't believe that the people there were really endless. Would they still dare to invade the 10,000 Demon Valley after the death of 2 supreme experts? Hearing Shueishenqi's question, Han Fei shook his head slightly. "How can I take away the corpse of a king? However, I do have a guess. Perhaps there was another person who went in before." "Impossible." Shueishenqi frowned. If someone had gone in before, the star tortoise would have known it. Besides, if that person had the ability to enter that place without anyone knowing, why would he leave the corpse there? Han Fei said, "As we all know, 12-year-old children need spirit awakening fluid to awaken their spirits. And spirit awakening fluid seems to be something that can only be derived from kings. If that person had taken the corpse away, then the human race would have no spirit awakening fluid to use. Although some people can awaken naturally, the overall strength of the human race will inevitably be greatly reduced." Shueishenqi couldn't help but look at Han Fei. "Since you said so, Obviously you already know who that person is, right? Han Fei paused. Mr. Shui, do you know Tang Yen? Shui Shenqi's eyelids twitched slightly and he looked at Han Fei quietly. Do you mean the supreme commander of the Scattered Stars Island more than 1,000 years ago? Han Fei grinned. It seems that Mr. Shui knows. Shui Shenqi said, I have been in charge of the Scattered Stars Island for so many years, so of course I know. Tang Yen is a genius. He stayed in the position of Supreme Commander for 5 years. It can be said that he is the one who has been the Supreme Commander for the shortest time in history. But this person became a Venerable on the 7th day. In 3 years he passed the Intermediate Venerable Realm, and in 5 years he reached the Advanced Venerable Realm. In the end, because Tang Yan's strength improved too fast, it caused a war between human beings and sea demons. It was also because of that battle that the Sea Demon King city completely faded from the sight of humans, and even its shadow could not be found. And Tang Yen also seemed to wander, saying that he wanted to find the Sea Demon King city. So he resigned from the position of Supreme Commander. Han Fei didn't know what Shui Shenqi said. He had already read all the information about Tang Yen. However, those information seemed to be deliberately left behind by someone. It was like a resume, recording what Tang Yen had done in various periods. But he didn't mention the cloud whale. And the star tortoise once said that the cloud whale was brought back by Tang Yen. In this way, it didn't match. There was a big problem with Tang Yen. It was precisely because of this that Han Fei didn't touch the cloud whale's corpse. There must be some secrets in it that he hadn't unraveled. Shui Shenqi narrowed his eyes and looked at Han Fei. Did Tang Yen go down there? Han Fei nodded slightly. According to some traces, it should be possible. I need to check the details again. Han Fei didn't intend to tell Shui Shenqi now. Today's test, Shui Shenqi knew much less than him. Then this kind of secret might have other mysteries. He'd better wait. Seeing Han Fei's perfunctory look, Shui Shenqi didn't ask further. Otherwise, there was no need to force Han Fei to lie. Shui Shenqi asked, Is that all? Han Fei said, Well, there is one more thing. Han Fei said, A few days ago, I checked the time when the previous Supreme Commanders became venerable from Old Qin. They all have one thing in common, that is, before they became the Supreme Commanders, they were all explorers. There was even one person who became the Supreme Commander when he was a junior explorer because of his great wisdom. And these people generally took no more than 30 years to become venerable from the time they became the Supreme Commanders. Just now, the intelligent master I mentioned took 27 years to become a venerable from a junior explorer. Han Fei was not a fool. Although his cultivation speed was very fast, how many opportunities did he have to take to be able to progress so fast? However, these guys who could become the Supreme Commanders all cultivated at an abnormally fast speed. So many explorers were selected normally, but from beginning to end, only 2 of them took more than 30 years to become venerable. Among them, Shui Shenqi took the longest. It took him a full 50 years to become a venerable. And Old Han, according to the records, took 21 years, which was neither fast nor slow. However, after learning about Old Han, Han Fei felt that Old Han must have done it on purpose. It stood to reason that Old Han's strength should have fallen from a very, very high level. He had long been a venerable. Why did it take him 21 years to make a breakthrough? And among them, the fastest was Tang Yen, who only took 5 years. From a peak-level explorer, he soared all the way to an advanced venerable, so fast that the sea demons didn't hesitate to start a world-shaking war to stop Tang Yen. Shui Shenqi looked at Han Fei calmly. With your intelligence, you should have discovered it. Han Fei nodded. Of course I discovered it. When I stood in front of millions of people, when I became the one that everyone expected, I felt the power of hope. Han Fei asked the old turtle this question. The old turtle said, This power is a kind of power of the great way between heaven and earth, which is used to repair one's Tao heart. If one's Tao heart was firm, one would become a king and be omnipotent. Han Fei also asked Peaceful, but Peaceful looked blank and didn't feel anything about it. The old turtle said, Peaceful is not walking this path, so if Peaceful wants to become a king, her way of becoming a king will be different from yours. The power of hope of the Shuemu heaven was with the Life Queen, not peaceful. At that time, Han Fei felt that this power of hope might only belong to the leader of a race. The old turtle talked about the Tao heart. If peaceful couldn't feel it, then Xue Shenqi should have the most experience. Power of hope? Xue Shenqi thought for a moment. That's a good word. If so, this kind of power can be explained. Xue Shenqi said, you can try to use this energy to fuse with the Great Way. I don't know what this power is. However, I believe that this is the aspiration of the people, the power of faith. Under the nourishment of this power for a long time, the speed of cultivation will double, the perception of power will be stronger, and the understanding of the Great Way will be more sensitive. So, this is why all the previous Supreme Commanders have made breakthroughs so quickly. Fuse with the Great Way? Seeing that Han Fei was a little stunned, Xue Shenqi stood up and said, this power can make you a venerable, maybe it can also make you a king. However, the power of hope of these people on the Scattered Stars Island is not enough. If you want to take this path to become a king, you must hold the 36 towns in your hands. This is why I didn't stop you from revealing the unknown place to the 36 towns. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1409. Han Fei nodded and decided to give it a try. His Great Way should be a bridge, not just a seed. But since the first manifestation of the Great Way last time, he had never seen that bridge again. The old tortoise's voice suddenly sounded, everyone's path to becoming a king is different. The power that you feel is called the power of hope, and just as he said, it could also be a type of power of faith. However, in my opinion, it's a manifestation of the Taoist heart. When millions of Taoist heart power converge, it becomes your so-called power of faith. In fact, it's just that each of them has too little Taoist heart power. Of course, Han Fei knew the importance of the Taoist heart power that the old turtle said. However, these two words were too unfathomable. What's the use of just Taoist heart? Taoist heart couldn't be used to cut firewood or fish. It couldn't be materialized. However, Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. No wonder the previous Supreme Commanders have grown so fast. It turns out that they are not cultivating alone. Suddenly, Han Fei came back to himself and looked in the direction where Xue Shenqi left. Son of a bitch! Han Fei couldn't help but curse. Xue Shenqi has been a peak-level explorer for so long. I wonder how much his strength has been suppressed. With Xue Shenqi's reputation, it took him a full 50 years, twice as long as the other Supreme Commanders, to become a venerable. Once he became a venerable, how could he be ordinary? Therefore, Xue Shenqi should be very strong. So, Xue Shenqi deliberately gave me the blue feather? Fuck, it's a trap, it's all a trap. Han Fei's face darkened. He thought he would look arrogant after killing the two venerables. However, it turned out that they deliberately left it to him. Who would be able to be happy about this? Oh. Han Fei shouted to the outside, I'm meditating. No matter who comes, tell them to come again tomorrow. Outside the door, two hidden fisher guards took the order. Han Fei meditated, and the arrays in the mansion were interconnected. Thousands of formations concealed all the secrets of the City Lord's mansion. As early as the Age of Doom, Han Fei had already spent a lot of time drawing the arrays of the Avenger. Now, with just a little more time, it would not be a big problem to hide from the Venerable One's senses. On that day, when he took over the position of the Supreme Commander, he invested a massive amount of resources and forced the big clans of the Thousand Star City to submit to him, which won him the favor of many people. Therefore, a large amount of willpower entered his body that day. Because there was a lot of it, Han Fei could clearly feel the power. After a few days, Han Fei found that this power was almost omnipotent. Not only could it nourish one's body, but it could also improve one's physique and soul power. Of course, it was only a few days, so there wouldn't be any big changes. However, over the years, this kind of improvement would be very terrifying. However, with Han Fei's current physique, it could be said that he had cultivated to the limit that he could cultivate. Therefore, Han Fei could sense that the weird power that entered his body was not consumed at all. It was hidden in every grain of his flesh and blood and could barely be mobilized. hidden in every grain of flesh and blood of my body? Suddenly, Han Fei was startled by a thought that suddenly came to his mind. The power of the Great Path was also hidden in every bit of spiritual energy and could not be found at all. The same was true of this willpower. In the words of the old turtle, this willpower was also a manifestation of the power of the Great Path, a way to manifest one's belief. Willpower is actually equal to the Great Path? Han Fei took a deep breath. To verify his guess, Han Fei immediately removed some arrays and scanned the thousand-star city with his perception. Immediately, Han Fei found Jing on the top of the Empyrean waterfall. Beside Jing there was a big yellow fat cat. At this moment, a person and a cat were playing with the hot pot. Let me tell you, I've already learned 70% to 80% of the essence of Han Fei's cooking. This hot pot is delicious when it's boiling hot. And this red pepper, this thing is very precious. Han Fei only planted a few in his yard, and I dug them all back. After my careful cultivation, I've planted a lot of them now. Jing rolled her eyes. Careful cultivation? Isn't it a lot of spiritual energy? Big Yellow shook its head. That's different. Although I have a lot of red peppers, only I use them. Well, little Gio also gives them to me. Anyway, there are only a few of them. Isn't it precious when no one else has them? Tira said, then put them. What are you doing with a handful of red peppers? Big Yellow was stunned for a moment. I forgot how many a little is. Little Gio told me that a little is. Hearing this, Jing realized that this was an unreliable cat. Suddenly, she had an idea. She raised her head and looked in the direction of Central City. She said, take 6 of them, crush them into powder and throw them in. Big Yellow was overjoyed. But, under my influence, you have learned the essence of hot pot. Jing echoed with Big Yellow, but she was already talking to Han Fei in her heart. Han Fei said, let me ask you something. Before Her Majesty became a king, was she worshipped in the Cloud Sea Divine Tree? Jing was slightly puzzled, not knowing why Han Fei asked this. However, she still said, of course. Her Majesty was a peerless heavenly talent that only appeared once in 10,000 years. Every time she reached a new level, she would be invincible in the water-wood heaven. But that was tens of thousands of years ago. Her Majesty once became a demi-venerable in 10 seconds, a venerable in 100 seconds, and a peak-level junior venerable in 2 hours. This amazing feat has been praised for thousands of years. Han Fei asked, then how long did it take for her to become a king from the venerable stage? Jing said without hesitation, I'm afraid you'll be scared to death if I tell you. Han Fei said, do you think I'm scared? You can tell me about it. Jing said, it took a total of 38 years. It took the queen 18 years to subdue the 4 major races and become the king of the 4 races. It took 10 years to fight the Baibei royal city. In the past 10 years, Her Majesty killed 13 venerable realm great demons by herself, which was a strong venerable that the water-wood heaven had never seen before. In the last 10 years, her strength soared and she broke through in one fell swoop. Han Fei was stunned for a long time. Is the Life Queen so awesome? She looks quite gentle. However, Han Fei immediately suggested, hey, how did the queen resist the Baibei royal city before she became a king? Jinger said, at that time, the White Armor Emperor hadn't become a king yet. You know, when a king was born, many heavenly talents rose up. At that time, the queen appeared in the water-wood heaven, and the White Armor Emperor appeared in the Baibei royal city. The queen and the White Armor Emperor became kings only 7 days apart. As soon as the great heavenly tribulation descended, the heavenly power descended, and it was inevitable that she would become a king. Even if the White Armor Emperor became a king first, he couldn't stop the queen. Han Fei asked, so, that is to say, the queen has been worshipped by many people since she was a child? Jing nodded. What's wrong? Han Fei was silent for a moment. Okay, you guys continue to eat the barbecue. After asking Jing, Han Fei had a rough idea. It seemed that, as Shueshenqi said, it was not enough to rely on the wishes of the millions of people on the Scattered Stars Island to become a king. What if these millions of people could become hundreds of millions, or even billions of people? Han Fei couldn't help but sigh in his heart. What if I replaced all the sea god statues with my own statues? However, as soon as this idea came up, Han Fei extinguished it. Before, he didn't know, but now he knew that the sea god statue should be his mother. He didn't know where she was now, but now he knew that the sea god statue should be his mother. Now he stole her faith. Wasn't this a trap? Han Fei thought to himself, it seems that there's still a long way to go to become a king. However, the most urgent thing for him at the moment was to comprehend his own great way. Then he would use this wish power to become a venerable as soon as possible. Once he became a venerable, there would be basically no place in the world that he couldn't go. Even if it was the 1,000-star city, with his means, it was not impossible for him to break into it. Han Fei continued to sit cross-legged. Although he could feel this wish power. However, it didn't seem to exist. According to the old turtle, this was a kind of great way. And the great way was invisible, so how could he see its appearance? Therefore, Han Fei immediately changed his way of thinking. Since I can't find the wish power that entered my body, where are they hidden in my flesh and blood cells? Then let them come out by themselves. In fact, this was what Han Fei was best at. Han Fei immediately activated the Tao seed and thought in his mind, Great Way, gather. Sure enough, as soon as Han Fei thought of this, the Tao seed immediately rotated. Although Han Fei couldn't see it, he could feel that invisible energy was gathering and drilling into the Tao seed. Suddenly, a small bridge wrapped in mist appeared in front of Han Fei. Wow! Han Fei was overjoyed. The bridge appeared again. Except for when the Great Way first appeared, he had only seen this bridge once. Until today, it appeared for the second time. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Can I go up this time? The old turtle also said at this time, Did you see it? The white mist covering the bridge seems to be a little less. Han Fei was stunned. Yes, that's right. The last time he saw this bridge, it was shrouded in white mist everywhere and he couldn't see anything. This time, although it looked the same, the white mist covering the bridge was at least 1/3 less. Han Fei immediately thought of something. It's the wish power. Thinking of this, Han Fei's heart was excited. The wish power could be integrated into the Great Way and make the Great Way stronger. Even at this moment, Han Fei still felt that invisible power was gathering. This time, Han Fei didn't immediately go up the bridge, because the amount of white mist was gradually decreasing. After half an hour, the amount of white mist was reduced to about half of the original and stopped decreasing. And Han Fei felt that the wish power he had obtained was almost consumed. Wow! Seriously? The power of faith of millions of soldiers is gone? The old turtle couldn't help but say, Just be content. This power is already a lot. If you have 1 or 2 more times of this kind of wish power, your Great Way may be revealed. Han Fei thought to himself, How can there be so many times? If you want to win the faith of millions of people, don't you have to do the corresponding things? If you don't do anything, people won't believe you. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1410. Originally, Han Fei thought that he might not be able to figure out the use of the power of faith in a short time. Who could have thought that it would be so easy for him to manifest his Tao? In fact, not only the bridge came out. Besides, Han Fei didn't know if there was something wrong with his eyes or something. His Tao seed seemed to have grown a little bigger. At this moment, it was the size of a small green bean that had just been planted. The Tao seed has become bigger, and the bridge has come out. No wonder no matter where I go, I have to make a statue there. Under the worship of hundreds of millions of people, the power of faith is inestimable. At this moment, Han Fei looked at the misty bridge in front of him. Since it was a bridge, he had to walk on it. His Tao, his bridge, if he didn't walk on it, who would walk on it? At this moment, the power of faith he had accumulated had been consumed. What else could Han Fei do but walk on it himself? Han Fei took a breath. I'm going to go up. Bam. Han Fei stepped on the bridge. However, this time was different from the last time. Last time, when he walked to the middle, Han Fei felt relaxed. This time, although it was also relaxed, Han Fei felt that his power was expanding and his Dao seed was trembling. Huh! The feeling was different this time. Han Fei quickly said, "Old Yuan, do you find anything wrong?" However, Han Fei found that a fuzzy mist barrier seemed to have been born in his divine sense at some point, which blocked the old turtle too. Han Fei was shocked. Last time, it was not like this. The old turtle walked all the way to the middle of the bridge with him. But this time, he just went up one step and the old turtle was isolated? Is my great Dao so strong? Han Fei couldn't help but feel excited. He didn't feel the slightest worry because the old turtle was isolated. The old turtle knew him too well and knew too much. The more he knew, the more he couldn't let it go. Otherwise, if all his secrets were exposed by this guy, what would he do? Now it was just the right time. The old turtle couldn't see his Dao, which should be a kind of self-protection of the Dao. Han Fei continued to climb the bridge without hesitation. 1 step, 2 steps. With every step up, Han Fei felt that the Dao seed shook more violently and his power fluctuated more violently. For some reason, Han Fei had a feeling that his power of the Great Path could already be used. However, apart from creating something out of nothing, Han Fei didn't know how to make use of this power. As soon as he reached the 7th step, Han Fei felt his legs turn to jelly. He felt like he was carrying 2 mountains on his back. The gravity was so strong that his legs were bent. However, it was different from last time. Last time, Han Fei only had a half-golden body, and his flesh and bones were much weaker than now. But today, Han Fei's golden body refinement had reached the phenomenal success level, and his flesh and blood had changed qualitatively. Therefore, Han Fei managed to resist the terrifying gravity that felt like a mountain hanging above his head. The last time he was here, he fused with Little Black and Little White. He seemed to have seen another version of himself, an invisible force, and a void. This time, through the mist, Han Fei still couldn't see it clearly. It seemed to be the same as before. However, Han Fei felt that he could still move forward. Hoo. Han Fei took dozens of breaths before he slowly and tentatively took another step forward. Bam! When this step fell, Han Fei felt that his body bent a little again. The weight on his head seemed to have increased again. Han Fei immediately realized that he was not going up the bridge, but going down the bridge. After taking this step, Han Fei seemed to have realized that if he took another step forward, he would probably be able to hold it. However, if he continued, he might not be able to. Sure enough, Han Fei took another step down without hesitation. Clap, clap. Han Fei put his hands directly on his knees. He felt that he was about to squat down and couldn't hold it anymore. Fuse. When the yin-yang divine eyes appeared, Han Fei's face suddenly became a bit colder. Through his eyes, Han Fei actually saw 3 paths in the mist. Unlike the last time, he saw 3 paths this time. Each path was only about 3 or 5 meters long, and then it was cut off by darkness, as if he was not allowed to look back. However, these 3 paths were extremely strange. Under the bridge, the 3 paths diverged, and on the one in the middle, there was a person standing, a person who looked exactly like him, quietly looking at him on the bridge. This feeling was very weird. Han Fei stared at him for more than 10 seconds, only to find that the person's eyes were motionless, like a statue. Han Fei thought to himself, "Is it another me?" Then he looked at the path on the left. The array on that path was twisted, the lines were complicated, and it was full of vast and unpredictable strange lines. In those lines, Han Fei felt vitality, soft brilliance, full of holiness and warmth. Tianqi Avenue? Gudu! When he saw that path, Han Fei immediately had a feeling that it was the great path of a spirit gatherer, the Tianqi Avenue. Why did it appear in his great path? Han Fei looked at the path on the right again. On this path, there were not so complicated lines and textures, but there seemed to be a kind of weird energy. Occasionally there was golden light flowing, occasionally there was tidal energy, and the rest was strong murderous intent and fighting intent. That kind of willpower was reflected in his mind. Han Fei subconsciously said, "The invincible path?" Han Fei was stunned. On the left was the Tianqi Avenue, and on the right was the invincible path. Han Fei seemed to understand a little now. As a spirit gatherer, he had learned the Tianqi Avenue. Therefore, the Tianqi Avenue appeared in his great path. Because he was now walking on the invincible path and practicing the body-refining technique, an invincible path appeared in front of him. If the old turtle hadn't told him before that he had never seen this great path, Han Fei would have thought that everyone was the same. In the explorer realm, there would be a bridge. Only after crossing the bridge would he find that there were multiple choices and he could choose the most suitable great path for himself. However, this white mist bridge itself was his own great path. Did he have an extra step to cross the bridge than others? However, after crossing the bridge, did he still have to choose a great path to take? But if he didn't have to choose, why did 3 great paths appear? It was obvious that he was being asked to choose. Han Fei knew both the great paths on the left and the right. However, he couldn't understand the one in the middle at all. Why was there another great path standing on the opposite side? What great path did he represent? Han Fei didn't understand this at all. Han Fei didn't want to choose now, and he probably couldn't. He had already gone down 2 steps. Han Fei thought to himself, I'm afraid I still can't cross it this time. But in any case, the mist was reduced, and he had gone up 2 more steps than last time. The day when the white mist dissipated might be the day when he walked to the other side of the bridge. And the day when he reached the other side of the white mist bridge should also be the day when he became a venerable. Oh! At the last moment, Han Fei used all his strength and took another step forward. However, as soon as he moved his foot, he sat down on the steps. Then, Han Fei felt dizzy. When he recovered from this dizziness, there was no bridge in front of him. Han Fei was panting and his whole body was soaked at this moment. This time, what Han Fei saw was much more vivid than last time, and he saw the 3 paths under the bridge clearly. The old turtle's voice sounded immediately. What happened? At the moment you stepped on the bridge, the power of the great path shielded me. Have you mastered your great path? Han Fei said grumpily, Look at how sweaty I am. Do I look like I have mastered my great path? Han Fei looked at his data information. However, this time, there was only a slight change in the data, and the difference was extremely small. It should be the nourishing effect of the power of hope on the body. The matter of crossing the bridge should have nothing to do with strength, but with the great path. Although he couldn't cross the bridge this time, Han Fei finally knew the way to cross the bridge. He had to find a way to accumulate more power of hope. As long as he got the power of hope, his great path would eventually be revealed. Then what was the 3rd path? He would eventually have the answer. In this case, Han Fei didn't think too much about it. There was no need to cultivate in seclusion at this moment. The power of hope had been used up, and it would take time for him to disassemble his spiritual energy. Now, what he couldn't afford to delay the most was time. After all, he was only 4% away from reaching the standard of becoming a venerable. Originally, Han Fei felt that he should practice and reach 70% disassembly rate as soon as possible. However, as the saying goes, haste makes waste. Even if he reached 70%, Han Fei didn't think he would immediately become a venerable. What if he could reach 80%? He had spent too little time in the explorer realm. At most, it had only been 3 years. From the tribulation to the peak level in 3 years, this speed was even comparable to that of Tang Yen back then. And Tang Yen cultivated with the power of hope, but Han Fei didn't. Just when Han Fei was thinking about what to do next, something suddenly happened. Suddenly, Han Fei felt that the array outside the mansion was shaking, and some power was trying to break the array by force. With a thought, Han Fei passed through the array and saw a venerable he had never seen before, trying to break the array with a face full of anger. Seeing this, Han Fei immediately knew which side they were on. Who else could it be except the big families? And his guards had already been thrown 100 kilometers away, lying on the ground. Oh! Above the sky, Han Fei's roar was like thunder. Traitors of big families, how dare you break into my mansion and hurt my guards? Are you going to rebel? Venerables of the 7 sects, please come back and kill this bastard with me. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 14:11. Han Fei didn't expect that there would be someone who dared to disrespect him when he had just taken office. Boom. A saber light soared into the sky above the central city. A sky-piercing light soared into the sky. Bam! Han Fei's roar really caught everyone off guard. On the Scattered Stars Island, many people were taken aback. In the club, someone was drinking. Suddenly, he heard a clap of thunder in his ear. Then his butt trembled and the glass in his hand fell. In the Fishers' Union, many people were fishing. This was their daily work. Someone looked pleasantly surprised. A blood spirit shrimp was about to take the bait, which was worth a lot of money. Just when the blood spirit shrimp was about to take the bait, there was a roar in the sky, and all the creatures in the offshore sea fled in fear. Fuck, what's going on? That voice, it's so familiar. Huh? Isn't that General Han's voice? What's going on? Who is General Han going to kill? Many people who were on break and on duty saw a terrifying saber light sweep through the sky, directly cutting a huge hole in the sky. Han Fei stepped in the air and pointed at the sky. Which family are you from? How dare you attack the city lord's mansion? Of course. The big families came to negotiate because Han Fei was too domineering and didn't care about the consequences, so they couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't kill the supreme commander of the Scattered Stars Island. What if he was killed by the big families of the Thousand Star City? The consequences would be very serious. On the Scattered Stars Island, there were all elites of the human race. Once they became enemies with the Thousand Star City, they would be disappointed. In the future, they wouldn't be able to guard against it. For no other reason than that there were too many elites here. Any one of them could rise in the future. At that time, if they found trouble with the big families, they would make countless enemies for the big families. Yesterday, the big families came to negotiate. Han Fei asked for too many resources. They were really unwilling to invest such a huge amount of resources into the Scattered Stars Island. They couldn't directly attack Han Fei, but they couldn't avoid him either. Therefore, these big families wanted to give him some resources. Then, they would negotiate in private. Han Fei should know when to stop. But to his surprise, as soon as he proposed this idea yesterday, Han Fei cursed loudly and was even ready to kill him. Because the experts of the 7 great sects were present, what else could Chu Qing and the others do other than go back in disgrace? Today, the people who came were different. How many ancestors of the Zhang clan are there? Anyway, there was another one. Back then, Han Fei failed to steal from the Zhang family and instead caused Li Tianshan and the Zhang family's second ancestor to fight. In the end, the heaven-severing finger killed the second patriarch of the Zhang clan. Therefore today, the Zhang family came with anger. Although he couldn't do anything to Han Fei, the Zhang family had another source of confidence, which was money. Whether it was the currency of the Thousand Star City or the 36 towns, in the end, the Zhang family was responsible for taking back the useless pearls and destroying them. The Zhang family was chosen because the Zhang family controlled the dragon boats and could get a share of the Scattered Stars Island. Also, the Zhang family was responsible for the major markets of the Thousand Star City. In terms of financial resources, none of the Chu sect, the Chao family, or the other major families were a match for the Zhang family. Besides, because the Zhang family had a strong foundation, others didn't dare to touch the Zhang family at will. Otherwise, if the Zhang family shook the world with their wealth, ordinary people really couldn't solve the problem. They could fight, but how to settle accounts? The other families were indeed helpless. But now, the dragon boats of the Level 3 fishery were gone, and the Scattered Stars Island was gone, but the economic regulation couldn't be stopped. Therefore, it was necessary for Zhang Jihua to challenge Han Fei. It was precisely because of this that the big families pushed the Zhang family to negotiate. After all, the Zhang family was also the best at doing business. If the economy collapsed, the Thousand Star City and the 36 towns would be in chaos. Even the Scattered Stars Island would be in chaos. Before Zhang Jihua came, he had already made up his mind. Even the economy of the Scattered Stars Island was controlled by the Zhang family to some extent. Where would the pearls collected from the pearl divers' port go? They were all controlled by the Zhang family. Han Fei didn't want them to be in chaos. Fine, hand over the Level 3 fishery, or exempt the Zhang family from entering the island. Zhang Jihua even felt that he could directly talk to Han Fei about the king's corpse. And these were the reasons why Zhang Jihua dared to break the seal by force. But when he led the crowd here, he found that Han Fei actually closed the door and refused to see any guests. Damn it. You asked us to pay the money, but you closed the door and refused to see any guests? Are you deliberately messing with us and slapping us in the face? You're a venerable, but so many people are waiting outside your city lord's mansion. How fucking ostentatious. Even explorers would feel resentful, let alone venerable realm experts. However, what Zhang Jihua never expected was that Han Fei, this bastard, just slashed him with a knife. Fuck. Negotiate? Why did you slash me? At this moment, Han Fei was furious and pointed his knife at the sky. Tell me, who are you? Today, if I don't have a good reason, I'll definitely kill you. Chu Qing and the others hid in the void and sneered secretly. Ye Kai also said, Han Fei is just a reckless man who only knows how to fight. If the Zhang family takes action, Han Fei won't be able to deal with them at all. Chu Qing said lightly, but the Zhang family may not necessarily take action. Using money is a big deal. If you're not careful, you'll become a sinner. However, it's better to deepen the hatred between Han Fei and the Zhang family first. Even if the Zhang family tolerates it now, how can the Zhang family, which has lost all face, give up? Zhang Jihua and Han Fei looked at each other across the air and shouted, I'm Zhang Jihua from the Zhang family. I'm here to negotiate. Han Fei, why did you close the door and refuse to see any guests? Hearing this, Han Fei thought to himself, I've never seen this person before. Whose family is he? However, as soon as the Zhang family came, Han Fei immediately knew their intentions. Xue Shenqi and Mu Tianfang both reminded him of this matter. They mentioned the Zhang family's ability to control the economy. Han Fei scoffed at them. Economy? I know how to do that too. I don't know how to deal with complicated economics. How could I not know how to create innovative economic models and find some think tanks to give me advice? After all, I've seen the integration of the global economy. The Zhang family is nothing to me. In secret, Han Fei had already found the Scattered Stars 6th unit, which was dedicated to research. At that time, Cao Qiu invented a poison god, which was immediately sucked in. When Han Fei took out the paper currency he invented and the barter pricing rule, the entire Scattered Stars 6th unit was shocked. They knew that Han Fei had done another great thing. This guy wanted to redefine the model of currency. Once this method was implemented, the meaning of the pearl's existence would no longer be so absolute. At that time, paper money and pearls could be used as currency. The situation would be complicated and difficult to solve. Some people in the Scattered Stars 6th unit speculated that at that time, the two-currency could even replace the Zhang family's qualification to collect pearls. Han Fei didn't really have nothing to do. Not to mention the Scattered Stars 6th unit, he had actually already found the Scattered Stars 5th unit. The Scattered Stars 5th unit was the most secret supervisory department of the Scattered Stars Island. Ordinary people didn't know their existence at all. Even many people who knew the Scattered Stars 7th unit didn't know that there was a supervisory department. When Han Fei took over as the Supreme Commander, the real purpose of the new supervisory department was actually to keep one in the light and the other in the dark. One in the light and the other in the dark. In this way, it was reasonable to use the right and the wrong at the same time. Although Han Fei had never been a big leader in the real sense, how could he not know these things? Moreover, he was the one who came up with the system in the City of Justice. He could come up with plans and strategies himself. As for the problems in the implementation process, he could modify them while implementing them. Setting up a think tank, collecting opinions, and jointly drafting various rules was the job of a leader. Therefore, the moment Zhang Jihua announced his name, Han Fei immediately knew why he was here. At this moment, the venerables all flew over, looking dumbfounded. Who is Han Fei going to do this time? When they saw Zhang Jihua, they were speechless. Han Fei, you're really stubborn. You're just the supreme commander of the Scattered Stars Island, not a real king yet, and you haven't taken over the 1,000-star city and the 36 towns yet. However, Han Fei took the initiative and shouted, "How dare you threaten me with the common currency of the entire human race? You're so despicable. Do you know that once the currency is changed, the entire human race will be subverted and the foundation of the human race will be shaken? The Zhang family of the Thousand-Star City is trying to shake the foundation of the human race for their own interests? You should be punished. Watch my sword. Zhang Jihua? Zhang Jihua was dumbfounded. I haven't even said anything yet. Son of a bitch, why are you so dramatic? All the venerables? Chu Qing shouted, Not good, Brother Zhang, Han Fei is setting a trap for you. Even if you didn't plan to do this before, Han Fei's sound waves have already spread throughout the Scattered Stars Island. Now, I'm afraid the entire Scattered Stars Island has heard it. Zhang Jihua felt that his blood was freezing. Damn it, can you not shout at the entire Scattered Stars Island for no reason? Do you think it's glorious to shout at everyone? However, the next moment, a scene that made all the venerables even more embarrassed appeared. In the void, Zhang Jihua's voice sounded, Han Fei, don't be too ruthless. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I'm afraid you can't afford the price. Zhang Jihua was stunned. I didn't say anything. Everyone looked at Han Fei. This voice came from Han Fei's side, shaking in the void and covering the entire Scattered Stars Island. Damn it, Han Fei was acting alone. And he was acting in front of them. He didn't disguise it at all. Sure enough, as soon as Han Fei said this, the entire Scattered Stars Island went crazy. Someone who was drinking smashed his glass and stood up. What a vicious Zhang family. No wonder Marshal Han was furious and wanted to kill this person. This guy wants to subvert the economy of the human race? Someone burst into rage and roared at the sky. Fuck! You old bastards of the Zhang family. You're too cruel. Marshal Han just asked you for resources. You want to touch billions of human beings. That's a crime. Even the rogue cultivators of the Thousand-Star City were dumbfounded. They kept saying, the big clans are tyrannical. The big clans are tyrannical. The big clans are really the cancer of the human race. Someone shouted angrily, the big clans are tyrannical. They want to destroy the human race. That's a crime. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 14:12. At that time, the soldiers on the Scattered Stars Island were seething with anger. For a while, all kinds of curses lasted for a long time, and the curses were really earth-shattering. If the big families didn't want to give resources, they didn't have to threaten General Han with the stability of the entire human race. Zhang Jihua flew into a rage. Han Fei, don't slander me. In a hurry, Zhang Jihua shouted, trying to defend himself. However, he didn't know what to say for a while after hearing what Han Fei had said. Could it be that I didn't say those words just now? Was it Han Fei who acted? Han Fei's purpose was to make the millions of soldiers on the Scattered Stars Island hostile to the big families. However, Han Fei's performance was over. At this time, how many people would believe him if he explained it? Would these soldiers believe Han Fei? Or would they believe him who suddenly appeared? In a hurry, Zhang Jihua said to Han Fei via voice transmission again, Han Fei, don't make this matter public. We can negotiate about the resources you want. Negotiate? Han Fei smiled, and his body suddenly shone with golden light, and the giant phantom tore the void. You broke into my mansion and threatened the human race. How can I tolerate you? If I don't kill you today, I won't have the face to take over the Scattered Stars Island. Chilla. Han Fei tore the void, stretched out his hand, and a big mirror fell in his hand. It was none other than the genuine sky-hanging mirror. This mirror was mysterious and could display the sky curtain and play the scene thousands of kilometers away. When he was on the ancient battlefield, Xue Shenqi had shown it in person. Han Fei tore the void and his voice sounded in Zhang Jihua's mind. You want to threaten me with money? Your Zhang family's inheritance of 10,000 years will be destroyed by you. Zhang Jihua shouted, Han Fei, all this is just a self-directed performance. What does it have to do with my Zhang family? Han Fei sneered. You are already here. If I say it has something to do with your Zhang family, then it has something to do with me. Of course, if I say it has nothing to do with your Zhang family, then it has nothing to do with me. Zhang Jihua was already furious, but Han Fei's words forced him to suppress his anger. He growled, "What do you want?" A cunning glint flashed in Han Fei's eyes. The big families usually believe in one thing: as time goes by, all the unfavorable factors will eventually fade and be forgotten. No one would pursue the past filth, the past illicit affairs. Therefore, you can be as despicable as you want. In any case, everything will be forgotten. But today, your Zhang family was used by others to come and bargain with me, and now you want to play safe? That was just wishful thinking. I'll give you two choices. One is for me to become your enemy, and we'll fight to the death. Also, you will be blown up by me 3 times to appease the millions of soldiers of the Scattered Stars Island. Impossible! Zhang Huiji was enraged. Han Fei had brought the sky-hanging mirror. How could he not see this? He had already run into the void. Why did he bring the sky-hanging mirror with him? Needless to say, Han Fei, this bastard, just wanted the whole Scattered Stars Island to see his miserable defeat. This person was too shameless. Zhang Jia's heart was as clear as a mirror, but he couldn't explain it to the millions of soldiers of the Scattered Stars Island. He had fallen into Han Fei's trap. The Zhang family had stood in the Thousand-Star City for tens of thousands of years. If they were really blown up by Han Fei 3 times, how could they save their face? Zhang Huiji shouted, "Chu Qing Yi Kai? Come and help me." However, Han Fei flipped the round mirror in his hand, and on the Scattered Stars Island, the sky curtain bloomed and the void picture was clearly displayed. Seeing this picture, even Yang Kuan, who had just taken a step forward, shrank back. Everyone, including the 7 major sects, was shocked. Han Fei's move was too cruel. What did the big families want? They wanted to save their face. Even when they came to negotiate with Han Fei, they actually wanted to save some face. However, Han Fei decided to slap them in the face and live-stream the whole scene. Millions of pairs of eyes were staring at the void at this moment. Who the fuck dared to come up? Given Han Fei's unscrupulous and shameless character, what if during the battle, someone suddenly said that he was from the Chu sect or the Yi family? Wouldn't the family lose face? At this moment, on the Scattered Stars Island, countless people looked up at the sky. In the picture, Han Fei was wearing a battle suit, shining with golden light and surrounded by tens of thousands of knives like dragons. In the black misty void, the long river of knives strangled more than a dozen terrifying knife currents. Someone exclaimed, "Oh my God, General Han has taken action. Fuck, I've never seen a venerable powerhouse in my life." Someone cursed, "What nonsense are you talking about? General Han hasn't become a venerable yet. It's said that he's just a peak-level explorer. This is a battle between realms and a venerable." Gulp. Many people swallowed frantically, looking at the terrifying long river of knife light. As soon as the sky curtain was released, the scene of the battle between the two sides was immediately magnified countless times. That terrifying saber light only needed one slash to make one's scalp go numb. What did it mean when 10,000 knives were flying? The Empyrean waterfall. Big Yellow meowed, Han Fei is fighting. He's so powerful." He Xiaoyu and her teammates looked at the sky blankly. Next to her, the armorist swallowed. Is this the combat power of a venerable? I'm afraid that even a team of ours can't resist it, right? Next door, the manipulator said, "Not just a team. Even a team can't resist it. This kind of power has already transcended. We can't deal with it at all. As long as it's slightly affected, we can't stand it." He Xiaoyu took a deep breath and then looked at Jiao Ling, only to find that Jiao Ling was as calm as ever. She had mixed feelings. On the transverse mountain, outside a small house, Xue Shenqi looked at this scene indifferently, expressionless. However, Xue Shenqi had mixed feelings. He didn't know if it was the right decision to give the position of the Supreme Commander to Han Fei. "My sky-hanging mirror is used in battles. What are you doing? Why are you playing a movie?" Somewhere in an unknown space, the corners of Han Guanshu's mouth twitched. Holding a cup of tea, he murmured to the void, "Our son's personality is a bit different from ours. I hope our daughter can be better." In the void, Han Fei thought, I was worried that I couldn't collect the power of faith. How could I let go of this meat bun that was delivered to me? In any case, I'd better eat it first. Zhang Jihua didn't accept his proposal, so Han Fei didn't wait any longer. He shouted, Traitor Zhang, today, I'll clean up the mess for the human world. Boom. The sacrificial punch suddenly erupted. At this moment, the extremely tyrannical sky-piercing punch displayed the aura that it should have. Seeing Han Fei's punch, all the venerables on the side narrowed their eyes. Jian Sanqing said, in just over 10 years, Han Fei has grown into another Ren Tianfei. Fairy Huiyue shook her head slightly. Although Ren Tianfei is very arrogant, he is also very straightforward. He said he would kill 1,000-star city. Do you think Han Fei will? The atmosphere froze. Han Fei? This kid is very shrewd and good at acting. He knew very well that the story only needed to be told to those who needed to believe it. Just now, Zhang Jihua was tricked and Han Fei imitated his speech. And he did it in such a dignified way. Beast King technique. At this moment, on the Scattered Stars Island, regardless of strength, Han Fei was the only king here. Han Fei was not afraid at all. His body expanded and grew to the height of a war giant. In his hand, wherever Snowmorn passed, ice and snow fell, the void froze, and sword marks tore the sky apart. Just looking at it was enough to send chills down one's spine, and a chill ran down one's spine. Someone shivered all over. What a terrifying power. It's so cold just looking at it. Someone's eyes glowed. So strong. Is this the power of a venerable? Is this the real power of General Han? At this moment, many people felt that no wonder Xue Shenqi passed the position of the Supreme Commander to Han Fei. He was too fucking awesome. A peak-level explorer chased after a venerable all the way? How exciting! Zhang Jihua finally burst into fury and roared, Han Fei, don't go too far. Do you really think I can't stop you? Han Fei sneered. Why don't you try? With a thought from Zhang Jihua, the void within 100 kilometers instantly turned into a vast ocean of fire. Fuse. A fiery serpent stood behind Zhang Jihua and then drilled into his body. Zhang Jihua's facial orifices were all on fire. It seemed that his flesh and blood were burning, and flames were spurting out of the gaps of his battle suit. Sky-burning sea of fire. On the Scattered Stars Island, hundreds of thousands of people were frightened by the terrifying waves of fire. The newcomers who had just arrived on the Scattered Stars Island even fell to the ground in fright. Chu Qing said, Brother Zhang, Han Fei's Dao can seal space. You must be careful. With a thought, Zhang Jihua raised waves of fire and set up fire seeds within 1,000 kilometers. Even if Han Fei really had a way to seal the void, he could still leave. Han Fei, I won't kill you, but it doesn't mean that I don't dare to fight you. The Zhang family will not touch the currency base of the clan, not now, and not in the future. Don't pester me. Han Fei ignored him and continued to act. Now, are you afraid? Do you want to compromise? Let me tell you, it's too late. If I don't kill you today, how can I be in charge of the Scattered Stars Island? Fuse. Han Fei roared, and suddenly, his eyes were divided into black and white. For the first time, a terrifying pupil technique really appeared in front of everyone. It seemed that he was extremely shocked, like a terrifying king without feelings. Hula. The giant Han Fei opened his mouth and swallowed. In the sea of fire, dozens of fiery serpents turned into pure flame energy and were directly swallowed by Han Fei. Zhang Jihua was dumbfounded. Fuck, what the hell is this? It can even absorb my Dao fire? Zhang Jihua was dumbfounded. The other venerables were also dumbfounded, and the million soldiers were even more dumbfounded. On a certain coastline, Lin Wu looked at this scene in horror and murmured, Senior brother is so strong. Is this the path I want to take? The 100 Beasts' soul suppressor roared. In an instant, hundreds of beasts flew across the sky, and the roars were distorted again and again. Wait for the light. The Tao of 9 sounds descended, and Zhang Jihua's face was twisted. These were all powers that many people had never heard of. Under the impact, Zhang Jihua felt that his head was about to explode. Although he was not a beginner venerable, he was only a peak-level junior venerable, still far from the intermediate level. And Han Fei's power was so terrifying that it had already surpassed his. At this moment, a terrifying power as long as a kilometer, like a primeval serpent, blasted at Han Fei. But in everyone's eyes, Han Fei didn't dodge and resisted the terrifying impact of the flames with his body alone. From time to time, Han Fei swallowed it. In just a few seconds, he swallowed the fiery serpent. There's a forbidden spell here. Zhang Jihua immediately felt that something was wrong. He turned into flames, and with a flash of fire, he had already appeared 1,000 kilometers away. However, as soon as Zhang Jihua appeared, the heavenly sword shadow chopped straight down from his head. He didn't have a chance to run at all. Zhang Jihua thought he had run away, but Han Fei activated the horizon technique and forced Zhang Jihua to shrink his super long-distance to only 10 kilometers away. Chilla! Zhang Jihua was cut into flame fragments by the sword. Then, frost flowers quickly froze in the void. Han Fei held his sword horizontally and frowned slightly. Not dead? Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1413. On the Scattered Stars Island, millions of people gasped. They were shocked by the horrifying sword light. A super venerable that should only exist in the legends was killed by Han Fei with a single slash? Gulp. Someone took a deep breath. Marshal Han, you really dared to kill him. Someone was dumbfounded. Marshal Han, you're too domineering. You killed a venerable just like that? You didn't even hesitate at all. Someone cursed, good job. Chu Qing and the others all changed their expressions. It seemed that Han Fei's spatial power was not as simple as sealing the void. This guy could actually control the void. No wonder he dared to kill a venerable as a peak-level explorer. On the Empyrean waterfall, Peaceful also curled her lips and thought, I taught him the close-distance technique. That's my unique technique. Xue Shenqi watched this scene quietly. He probably knew that Han Fei's purpose of doing this was to obtain the power of will. This secret had always been known only by the supreme commander of the Empyrean waterfall. Those from the big clans had never been chosen as the supreme commander. Even the previous supreme commanders were afraid that the people from the big clans would discover this secret if they became the supreme commander. But what about the people who knew this secret? They wouldn't easily tell this secret to others. If one more person knew, in fact, it meant one more competitor. Xue Shenqi thought, if Han Fei can become a venerable, the world will be turned upside down. As long as he was not in the Thousand-Star City, the big clans couldn't do anything to him. When Han Fei became a venerable, he would have to go to the Thousand-Star City again. At that time, wouldn't the world be turned upside down? However, this had to wait until the crisis on the Scattered Stars Island was resolved. At this moment, before Heaven's Cry could descend, Zhang Jihua appeared again. Han Fei said telepathically again, you may have dodged once, but let's see if you can dodge twice. Zhang Jihua was shocked to find that he couldn't beat Han Fei. What the fuck is this? In terms of strength, Han Fei was actually not much stronger than him. In terms of soul, Han Fei shouldn't be as strong as him. In terms of mastery of the Great Tao, Zhang Jihua had no confidence in this. Han Fei was too evil. His control of the power of space seemed extraordinary. It shouldn't be something that an explorer should have. Moreover, this fellow's physique was really too strong. He actually forcefully swallowed his Great Tao fire and was completely fine? This was undoubtedly breaking his own Great Tao. How was he supposed to continue fighting? In reality, it was not Han Fei who could swallow Zhang Jihua's Great Path fire, but Little Black. The terrifying flames were inhaled by Han Fei. It was immediately absorbed by Little Black. The rest was just pure energy, which couldn't shake the current Han Fei. And Han Fei's behavior just now clearly showed that he didn't want to let him live. If he hadn't separated a part of his divine soul to hide in advance, he would have died this time. This meant that Han Fei really wanted to kill him, and he really dared to kill him. This brat was completely lawless, not caring about the consequences at all. From Han Fei's disguise just now, to Han Fei's current wanton killing, completely regardless of the consequences. Zhang Jihua took it for granted that Han Fei was just a killer. Although he was stronger than Xue Shenqi in terms of IQ, he was far inferior to Xue Shenqi. How could he reason with such a killer who did things completely regardless of the consequences? Could it make sense? In an instant, Zhang Jihua's newly reborn body split into countless flames again, scattering in all directions. But Zhang Jihua said, "Han Fei, I promise you." Han Fei sneered in his heart. "You're only agreeing now? What were you doing earlier? Fine, in that case, just beat me up twice more, and I'll let this matter go." However, the Zhang family must take the lead in promising resources on the spot. "I think you should have brought these resources. As the richest Zhang family in the Thousand-Star City, it's impossible for you not to have a last trump card." No matter how angry Zhang Jihua was, what could he do? Before coming, he vowed that he would force Han Fei to give in. After coming, to be honest, he was already dumbfounded. He had never seen such a reckless person like Han Fei. Han Fei shouted, "Reborn from a single drop of blood? Let's see how many times you can be reborn." Han Fei stepped into the air, followed by frost and snow. In the sky, the flames were blazing. Even through the sky, mortals could no longer see the battle in the void with their naked eyes. Someone wondered, wasn't the venerable of the Zhang family killed just now? Someone sighed. That's a venerable. How can he die so easily? He has the ability to be reborn from a single drop of blood. With a drop of blood, he can recreate himself. Someone said angrily, "I really don't know how such a person cultivated to the venerable realm. He doesn't take the lives of ordinary people seriously." Someone echoed, "He doesn't take our lives seriously at all. He's simply a cancer of the human race. He's crazily greedy for the resources and power of our human race. Compared with the Thousand-Star City, our 36 towns can't compare at all in all kinds of resources." Someone was discussing, "Do you think Marshal Han can win?" "Nonsense, of course I can win. How strong is Marshal Han? We saw that the venerable of the Zhang family couldn't fight back at all. I'm afraid he was also so powerful when he killed the 2 sea demon venerables. It's just that this time, the people from the big clans are a little stronger." The millions of soldiers of the Scattered Stars Island were all looking forward to it excitedly. However, the faces of Chu Qing and the others had already darkened. After Zhang Jihua was killed just now, although the battle between Han Fei and Zhang Jihua was in full swing, it didn't feel like a life-and-death battle anymore. They were all venerables. Who didn't know what the two of them were doing? Sun Baixing's face was stiff. Zhang Jihua compromised. Yang Kuan immediately said, "Are we really going to give such a huge amount of resources to the Scattered Stars Island? Can the Scattered Stars Island swallow him?" Chu Qing's face was ugly. "It's not a matter of whether they can swallow him or not. The problem is that the Scattered Stars Island will accept this amount of resources, but they won't consider our kindness. They will only think that the big clans of the Thousand-Star City have compromised." Yi Kai nodded. "That's right, but this is his territory. If we want to see the remains of the king, we have to be respectful to him before the battle." Yang Kuan roared, "Fuck, I really want to kill him." Boom in the void, Zhang Jihua was blown up again. Han Fei was like a Vajra god of war. The scene flashed and disappeared. Good. All hail Marshal Han. Marshal Han, beat him to death. Let the big clans know that we, the mighty human race, will never submit to them. The big clans should be killed. Marshal Han is invincible. Marshal Han is invincible. Marshal Han is invincible. Suddenly, on the Scattered Stars Island, millions of people shouted at the sky in unison. The scene was spectacular. And Han Fei himself didn't realize that when these millions of people were united, some kind of will seemed to descend, and the essence of the human world seemed to gather here. Han Guanshu noticed it. At this moment, holding the teacup, he watched this scene with a smile. Peaceful also noticed it and was dumbfounded. Is this Han Fei's power in the Yin-Yang heaven? 1,000,000 people, all of them shouting in unison, and their auras shot into the sky. This sort of feeling caused her to feel slightly dazed. This kind of feeling was a bit like when Her Majesty unified the four clans. Rumble, the flames exploded again, and Zhang Jihua was reborn again. 3 times in a row, the crowd was agitated. Zhang Jihua was reborn 3 times, but he didn't really die. This also made many people realize how terrifying the Venerable Realm was. With the blood drop rebirth, Zhang Jihua could actually fight with Marshal Han for so long? All of a sudden, a voice echoed in the void. Han Fei, I won't threaten you with the currency of the human race. I'll give you the resources you want. In the darkness, a large number of sea-swallowing seashells and sun-moon shells appeared. Seeing this, Han Fei finally stopped. With a flip of his hand, he grabbed all these resources. Han Fei scanned with his perception and found that the resources were almost the same. He didn't need to care about the verification. Han Fei immediately turned his head, looked at the void, and shouted, "Where are the resources of your families? If you brought them, give them to me. If you didn't, go back to the 1,000-star city." When the million soldiers saw the massive amount of resources, they were all tempted. They had already tasted the benefits of the spirit awakening fluid, and the whole island was full of people making breakthroughs. At this moment, the Zhang family was suppressed by Marshal Han and given resources, which were all for them. Han Fei was fighting for them. At this moment, the million soldiers knew that there was more than one family in the big clans. Now that one family had given resources to Han Fei, what about the other families? Would they give resources to him? Everyone held their breath. Marshal Han had asked for a batch of resources because of him. What if these people refused? Was Han Fei going to continue to fight? Humph! In the void, there was a leisurely voice, and then a piece of sea-swallowing seashells and sun-moon shells flew towards Han Fei. In the sky, hundreds of sea-swallowing seashells and sun-moon shells flew towards Han Fei, which made countless soldiers grin. Ha! Marshal Han is invincible. Marshal Han is so fierce. It's so satisfying. Oh, I won't give them to him. But he still gave them to him. Damn it, if I don't teach him a lesson, he won't listen to me. It's hard to say whether Marshal Han can control the battle situation and command the battlefield. However, in terms of robbing, Marshal Han is the best. Smacked, this person's head was immediately patted, and someone scolded, "Damn it, do you know how to talk? Is Marshal Han robbing us? He's fighting for resources for us. He does things in an open and above-board manner, and is full of righteousness." Hearing this, many people scratched their heads. Is this how to use awe-inspiring righteousness? Finally, end of this chapter. Chapter 14:14. In this battle, Han Fei won. It could also be said that the millions of soldiers of the Scattered Stars Island won the final victory. Zhang Jihua was very aggrieved. Of course, he didn't want to lose to Han Fei. When he came, he never expected such a result. However, from the very beginning, Han Fei had the intention to kill him. He really wanted to kill him. Could Zhang Jihua resist it? If he could, he wouldn't have been hacked by Han Fei. In the first fight, Zhang Jihua knew that if he didn't agree, Han Fei would kill him. For a venerable, life was the most important thing. Even the interests of the family were more important than their own lives. So, Zhang Jihua compromised. He took the lead to hand over the resources, and the other families had to give them. But the millions of soldiers of the Scattered Stars Island were watching the live broadcast. If others were willing to give them, but you refused, wouldn't you provoke public anger? This was definitely not a wise move. Besides, with Han Fei's strength, the consequences would be even more serious if he didn't give them the resources. At this time, Han Fei was very popular, and the major families didn't want to offend him now. Looking at the expressions of the venerables on the other side, Han Fei smiled faintly and found the familiar feeling again. These big families all bullied the weak and feared the strong. As long as you were strong enough, so what if you slapped them in the face? Just like in the Age of Doom, even if you slashed people in front of them, so what? The big families had deep foundations and many strong masters in the family. Although they were powerful, such families often had a lot of scruples. They were not alone, and the whole family had too many businesses. This was also the fundamental reason why old Han and the others could frighten these big families. When a huge amount of resources were collected by Han Fei shouted, "Wang Lin, come and check the resources. But if there's anything wrong, tell me." "General Han, I'm coming." Wang Lin's heart was still trembling. Just now, he was trembling all over when he watched the battle. Different from ordinary people, these explorer-level powerhouses could more or less see the difference. After all, in terms of realm alone, Wang Lin was at least an intermediate explorer. What Wang Lin was most worried about at that time was not whether Han Fei could grab the resources, but that Han Fei really killed Zhang Jihua. That would be the end of them. The Zhang family was the #1 conglomerate in the Thousand-Star City. They came to the Scattered Stars Island to negotiate, only to kill a venerable? How could the clan not be angry? Now that Zhang Jihua wasn't dead, Wang Lin managed to get 5 huge portions of resources. To put it bluntly, the Scattered Stars Island couldn't swallow such a huge amount of resources for now. Han Fei's batch of resources alone had already occupied all the Feiyanmu furnaces on the Scattered Stars Island. All kinds of spirit awakening fluid, spiritual fruits, spiritual springs, and other things were distributed to every soldier as welfare. Of course, the more consumables such as spirit awakening fluid and spiritual fruits, the better. No matter how many there were, the soldiers of the Scattered Stars Island could take them. However, those refining materials, cultivation methods, and battle skills could not be digested in a short period of time. Wang Lin would never complain about having too many resources. Apart from anything else, they could increase the combat power of the entire Scattered Stars Island army by at least 10%. If the rest time was long enough, they would definitely be able to cope with the next full-scale war. Just now, Han Fei deliberately glanced at the sea-swallowing seashells and sun-moon shells that Zhang Jihua threw down. There was no 7th level of the void fishing art among them, so he didn't look at them again and threw them all to Wang Lin. Then Han Fei looked at the sky and shouted in a low voice, "Now, human beings and sea demons are all in a state of preparation. I thank all of you for donating resources. However, the war is imminent. Don't run around. Now that the order has been given, I will need everyone's help." While speaking, Han Fei was still regretful. "Unfortunately, too few of you came. There are only 6 of them. I can't use them all." Among them, Chao Shuang of the Chao family was the only one who was slightly more at ease. However, the Chao family was not necessarily a good person. When the faceless man caused trouble in the Thousand-Star City, old Han asked the Chao family to take action, but they didn't. The Chao family didn't add flowers to the brocade, nor did they provide timely help. They just remained neutral. There were 4 venerables in the 7 major sections. Because of Tangu, this side might be closer to the Heavenly Sword sect, and there were venerables of the Sea Cloud Tower, so they could also be used. Except for the Sea Cloud Tower and the Heavenly Sword sect, the other sects of the 7 major sects couldn't be fully trusted. To be honest, Han Fei didn't trust anyone except his own people. Because the sects in the Thousand-Star City had been infiltrated by the major families. In Han Fei's opinion, the real purpose of these people here should be the king corpses, including the venerables of the Sea Cloud Tower. Humph, Zhang Jihua and the others left one after another. After all, there was no need to negotiate anymore. They had been defeated, and the resources had been given. What was the point of negotiation? Zhang Jihua thought to himself, if I talk to Han Fei about the distribution of resources in the Level 3 fishery and the Scattered Stars Island at this time, I'll probably have to fight. Then let's wait for the war between the human race and the sea demons. It's going to be over soon. After that war, let's see if Han Fei can still be as arrogant as he is now. Ignoring the venerables of the big clans who had left, Han Fei cupped his hands to the powerhouses of the 7 major sections. Sorry for the embarrassment. Jian Sanqing, Huayu Fairy, Mu Tianfang, and the others all took a deep look at Han Fei, cupped their hands, and left without saying anything. However, in the hearts of the people of the 7 major sects, it was obvious that Han Fei had long been prepared and was waiting for the Zhang family to jump into his trap. Why did he ask them to come back? Although he said he came back to help, it was more like a deterrent. Judging from today's battle, Han Fei's strength was more terrifying than they thought. He could kill Zhang Jihua. Basically, Han Fei could kill anyone below the intermediate venerable level here. Perhaps some people thought that the Zhang family only knew how to do business, but they had money and resources. Zhang Jihua was only one step away from reaching the intermediate venerable level, but he was still beaten by Han Fei. Whether it was speed, strength, or soul, none of them seemed to be stronger than Han Fei. Zhang Jihua's strongest alien flame was even swallowed by Han Fei. They had never seen such a scene before. They didn't know anything about the Beast King art or the 100 Beasts soul-suppressing roar. Only Cao Shuang knew very well that the swallowing method Han Fei had just used was a secret of the Cao family. However, Cao Shuang didn't speak, because even the people of the Cao family only knew that the secret technique of the Cao family was passed down from their ancestors. As for where their ancestors got it, which generation of ancestors got it, there were no records. After putting away the sky-hanging mirror, the sky was closed, and the scattered stars island was full of jubilation. For most ordinary people, the battle of venerables was meaningless. That was all fake. They wanted resources. That was the real deal. In everyone's mind, in fact, they didn't necessarily care about resources such as spiritual fruits, spiritual spring, or even weapons. As for the spirit fruits, they could do it themselves. In terms of weapons, in the past 7 or 8 years, Fei Yinmu's furnace had been running at full speed, and many soldiers on the Scattered Stars Island had already used semi-divine weapons. It could even be said that almost all those who became hidden fishers used semi-divine weapons. Some people even used more than one. Those who didn't use semi-divine weapons were mostly below the advanced hanging fisher level. For advanced hanging fishers, semi-divine weapons were common. What they really wanted was the spirit awakening fluid. For Han Fei and the others, 100 caddies, 1,000 caddies, or even 10,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid were nothing. However, that was for people like Han Fei. For ordinary people, spirit awakening fluid could improve their physique. It could even be said that when they were on the verge of a breakthrough, they could use spirit awakening fluid. The more they used, the better the effect. Who wouldn't like it? While everyone was rejoicing, Han Fei was also overjoyed. Except for Xue Shenqi and a very few people, no one knew that Han Fei's greatest benefit from this battle was the power of faith. At this moment, Han Fei returned to the Marshal's mansion. The 2 hidden fishers half knelt on the ground. "Marshal Han, please forgive us. We failed to stop them." Although that was what they said, the 2 guards' expressions were the same as usual. Their blood was surging and their hearts were beating faster. They seemed to be very excited. Han Fei stretched out his hand, and an invisible force lifted the 2 of them. Han Fei said kindly, "It's okay. They are venerables. How can you stop them? I was too engrossed in my cultivation and didn't notice the abnormality of the outside world. You almost suffered an unexpected disaster." With that, Han Fei waved his hand and the holy light technique descended, calming the boiling blood of the 2. Then, with a wave of his hand, each of them threw 10 caddies of spirit awakening fluid and said, "Take it." The 2 of them were dumbfounded. The marshal gave them spirit awakening fluid? Wasn't this a bit too much? Although 10 caddies of spirit awakening fluid was not very expensive, it was still more than 30,000 points of credit. "Marshal, we can't take it. This is our duty." Han Fei smiled and patted the 2 of them on the shoulder. "Take it. Although I'm not rich now, I can't even awaken 20 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. You are loyal to me and I should thank you." In Han Fei's heart, the old turtle rolled his eyes. "You are already so evil, and now you are still pretending to be kind? Can you live with that conscience of yours?" After taking the spirit awakening fluid, the 2 guards were so excited that they couldn't control themselves. "Marshal Han, we are willing to go through fire and water for you." Han Fei frowned slightly. "No, not for me, but for the Scattered Stars Island and the human race." "Yes, Marshal Han." In the excited voices of the 2, Han Fei once again locked the door of his mansion. After a few days, Han Fei once again felt a large amount of power of hope drilling into his body. At this moment, there were still power of hope drilling into his body. Obviously, at this moment, there were still many people who were moved and praising him. Han Fei thought that he should use this power of hope to uncover the mystery of the White Mist Bridge and understand his own Tao. However, when he sat down and was about to continue to study the secrets of the White Mist Bridge, the old turtle suddenly said, "Han Fei, I think you can solve your Tao later." Han Fei was taken aback and was a little confused. "What do you mean?" The old turtle said, "Do you really want to kill Zhang Jihua today?" Han Fei nodded slightly. "It doesn't matter if I kill him. The big clans have their own limitations. The death of one person is not enough to make them explode." The old turtle said, "That's not what I'm talking about. What I mean is, even if you try your best, it's actually very difficult for you to kill a venerable if you don't catch him off guard. This means that your strength is still a bit weak. Therefore, this emperor feels that it's better for you to increase your strength first. If you want to become a venerable, you have to at least disassemble your spiritual energy to meet the conditions for becoming a venerable." Han Fei couldn't help asking, "You mean you want me to use the power of hope to improve the speed of disassembling spiritual energy?" Chapter 14:15. Reminded by the old turtle, Han Fei was stunned for a moment. Although he couldn't fully use his Tao, he had now explored part of its power. For example, his Tao could create something out of nothing. Then, what about the degree of disassembly of spiritual energy? Could it be driven by the Tao? With the magical power of hope, it might be okay to disassemble it. Wait, what if I use the Taoist aura infiltration method? An idea suddenly popped up in Han Fei's mind. The insect king once told him about this usage. However, at that time, Han Fei hadn't been able to comprehend his own Tao. He didn't even fully comprehend the ability to create something out of nothing. Although he tried later, he still felt that the Taoist aura couldn't penetrate the spiritual energy quickly. However, what if he replaced the Taoist aura with the power of hope? After all, the power of hope was also a kind of Tao power. Thinking of this, Han Fei had an idea. A bit of spiritual energy appeared in front of him. Although it was imperceptible, it emitted a dazzling light. Han Fei activated the Taoist seed, and with a thought, the invisible power of hope quickly rushed into this bit of spiritual energy. With this impact, Han Fei found that there was a kind of power penetrating, which seemed to be entangled with the power of Tao in the spiritual energy. Fuse. Han Fei's heart was pounding nonstop, because at this time, he found that the power of hope infiltration method was tens of thousands of times better than the Taoist aura infiltration method. The speed of disassembly was extremely fast. At this moment, Han Fei also used the yin-yang divine eyes, so that he could feel the flow of the power of hope. This was a feeling that he had never felt before. At this moment, the power of hope converged in this bit of spiritual energy, and Han Fei had a hunch that he seemed to be able to find its traces. Sure enough, when the yin-yang divine eyes appeared, Han Fei immediately saw a trace of extremely faint, very light blue strange power, which seemed to be drilling into the depths of this bit of spiritual energy. It's it. Han Fei immediately beamed with joy, and the old turtle was dumbfounded. He thought, can Han Fei see the invisible Tao of the power of hope? However, the old turtle suddenly sensed something and said, Han Fei, don't get excited. What you see is not necessarily the so-called power of hope, but a dynamic feeling of your power of hope drilling into the depths of the spiritual energy. What you should pay more attention to is that bit of spiritual qi, and not the power of wishes. Hearing what the old turtle said, Han Fei frowned and his heart turned cold. It seemed that the old turtle was right. What he saw was indeed a trace of the great Tao, and not the power of the great Tao itself. Phew, you gave me a fright. Thought I saw the great Tao. Han Fei was immediately relieved. The old turtle was also speechless. How can you see the great Tao just because you say so? There were countless great Taos, and they were all different. What could they see? What does the great Tao look like? No one knows. Only you can see it? Han Fei immediately calmed himself down and focused his attention on the spiritual energy itself. His spiritual aura coat was being penetrated quickly. In Han Fei's mind, he was quickly decomposing the spiritual energy. The deeper he went, the harder it was for the spiritual energy to penetrate and separate. The more it was like this, the more powerful this bit of spiritual qi seemed. The actual power of this little bit of spiritual energy seemed to have exceeded its normal detonation power by 7 times. Han Fei only felt that the bit of spiritual energy was penetrating quickly. In just a moment, it had increased a little. 67%, 68%, 69%, 70%. With the penetration of the power of hope, the barrier of 70% had been broken. Immediately, Han Fei felt that it was more difficult to penetrate it. This was like two magnets with the same poles. The closer they were, the greater the repulsive force produced. When it reached 72%, Han Fei felt that the power of hope he had obtained from showing the movie in front of millions of soldiers this time was almost exhausted. Inside Han Fei's body, the old turtle felt that his blood was freezing. Is this the power that human beings call the power of faith? Something is wrong. Isn't the rate of disassembling spiritual energy increasing a bit too fast? At this moment, Han Fei had stopped. In front of him, 2 points of spiritual energy, one big and one small, appeared. Looking at these 2 points of spiritual energy, Han Fei suddenly had an idea. If I disassemble a little bit of spiritual energy and reassemble the rest, won't I still get a little bit of spiritual energy in the end? Also, can I disassemble 1 point of spiritual energy into 2 points, then 2 points into 4 points, and 4 points into 8 points? In this way, theoretically, I can get infinite spiritual energy. However, in terms of the degree of disassembly, I only need to disassemble it into 8 points of spiritual energy, and then I will get 87.5% of spiritual energy, which is enough to reach the level of the insect king. Han Fei immediately told this idea to the old turtle, only to hear the old turtle sneer. Han Fei, do you think all cultivators are fools? If it's really as simple as you say, then why do sea demons disassemble spiritual energy and perceive power? Han Fei frowned. But in theory it is feasible. The old turtle said, no matter how you disassemble 1 point of spiritual energy, you can only get 2 points of spiritual energy in the end. The big one is the power that you can already control. Remember, it's what you can control, because you can only disassemble so much. And the remaining spiritual energy that you can't disassemble is beyond your control. So, it's only meaningful to continue to disassemble it. Every time you disassemble 1% more power, it means that you can control this power by 1% more. Although your brain is jumping, you forget that the most fundamental thing about disassembling spiritual energy is not really to disassemble 1 point of spiritual energy into 2 points and use 2 points of power. You can completely control all the power contained in this point of spiritual energy. Han Fei was silent for a moment. So, the division method I mentioned, in fact, no matter how much spiritual energy is split, the final result is 50%? And it won't improve much? The old turtle smiled. I can tell you that this method will work, but it's not what you think. As you said, in the process of disassembling spiritual energy, there are also benefits. You can comprehend balanced power. You can try it later. It's quite good for fighting, but it's not good for understanding the energy of spiritual energy. Han Fei sighed. Fuck, the power of hope that I worked so hard to get only increased my spiritual energy disassembly rate by 6%? Han Fei immediately pointed his finger and blasted the point of spiritual energy in front of him out. However, the next moment he saw a fire mark appear. After disassembling 72% of spiritual energy, it blasted out nearly 8 meters. Hiss, Han Fei couldn't help but say, no. Old Yuan, tell me, how many times could you explode with a point of spiritual energy when you were at my level? 8 times? The old turtle said leisurely, don't be complacent. In the explorer realm, in theory, the highest limit of spiritual energy disassembly is twice. Of course, this twice varies from person to person. Therefore, the power that can be exploded with twice is different. Do you want to catch up with me? You need to continue to disassemble at least 3 to 4%. If you want to surpass me, you have to reach at least 80% of the disassembly rate. Han Fei was rather shocked. 80% of the explorer's recovery rate? That's not easy. The Insect King should be a heavenly talent, right? Now, it should be about 88%. The old turtle also said that those who reached 85% were already heavenly talents. Han Fei was about to speak when the old turtle said, "You want to know what the highest disassembly rate of an explorer is, right?" Han Fei nodded. "Do you know?" The old turtle sneered. "You don't have to deliberately pursue this. The disassembly of spiritual energy is not something that the explorer realm needs to complete. The venerable realm also needs to continue. Therefore, as long as it reaches 70%, you can become a venerable." It didn't mean that reaching the supremacy level with an 80% spiritual energy dismantling rate was better than 70%. As long as you catch up with me, it will be the same. Han Fei was stunned. "It won't affect me?" The old turtle said lightly, "It won't affect me. That's why I asked you to uncover the mystery of your Tao. Look, in just half a day, although it seems that your strength hasn't improved, your combat power has increased by nearly 10%. Isn't this more useful than trying to solve the mystery of your Tao now?" Han Fei thought for a moment. The old turtle's reminder was right this time. This guy should also realize that his current situation was quite serious. If he didn't improve his strength as soon as possible, if he died, he would probably die with him. The gains would not make up for the losses. Han Fei grinned. "Old Yuan, you're really something. I'll find a venerable later to absorb the vitality of." The old turtle said leisurely, "You should worry about yourself first. Although I don't know the situation of the sea demons here, the venerables on your side are much worse than those on the Shuemu heaven side, and they're not united. If there really is a royal city like the Baibei Royal City, I don't know why you took over the Scattered Stars Island at all. Because such a royal city is definitely not something that the Scattered Stars Island can defeat." Han Fei's eyes turned cold and he sneered. "It hasn't appeared yet, has it?" Han Fei suddenly stood up and continued, "Now, the disassembly rate of spiritual energy is enough. I just need to uncover the mystery of my Tao. Once this mystery is solved, I will immediately become a semi-venerable." The old turtle seemed to have expected something and was speechless. "What are you going to do?" The old turtle knew Han Fei too well. This guy found that the power of hope was so useful, so he would definitely try to collect it. With the daily supply of power of hope from the millions of soldiers, it would take at least several months to accumulate a wave of power of hope. Could Han Fei afford to wait? Even if he could, Han Fei wouldn't want to wait. Therefore, the answer was obvious. Han Fei wanted to do something big that could shock the millions of soldiers. Chapter 14:16. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. After the war, there were too many things to deal with. All kinds of problems that the major departments couldn't solve had to be sent to the general's mansion. Han Fei felt that being on duty was even more tiring than being an emperor. Although he didn't have to do everything himself, he had to know about it. Fortunately, he had the Gemini divine technique. At this moment, it was only Han Fei's white fog that was guarding the general's mansion. And the black fog went to the bottom of the Empyrean waterfall again. The star tortoise asked, "Boy, how did you get out of the seal last time?" What else could he say? He answered ambiguously, "I came back to find the answer." Standing next to the cloud whale's corpse again, Han Fei didn't grab the cloud whale's demonic essence. He walked around the cloud whale's corpse again and again. Although the cloud whale had died, its scales, flesh and bones were still slightly emitting the aura of the Great Path. This was also the reason why a large amount of spirit awakening fluid could be produced here. Because of the infiltration of the Great Path, spirit awakening fluid was born. Han Fei walked here many times and tried to perceive it again and again, but in the end, he was a little confused. Although this corpse was emitting the aura of the Great Path, he couldn't feel the strong power of the Great Path at all. If he didn't understand, he would ask the old turtle. However, the old turtle said, "With my current strength, I can't peep at the king. If I cultivate for another 100 years, I will definitely be able to see the Great Path. Han Fei rolled his eyes. I'm not even 30 yet. Wait for you for 100 years? I can't wait for you for 100 days. Although the old turtle couldn't peep at the cloud whale's great path, he inadvertently asked, for some reason, I always feel that this great path is not strong. Even though it has been dead for so long, the aura of the great path shouldn't be so weak. Han Fei was puzzled. How weak? The old turtle said, anyway, it's not strong. I don't know if its demonic essence was wasted or something. By logic, its aura of the great path should be at least several times stronger than it is now. In this regard, Han Fei was also speechless. That guy had already died. What was the difference whether the aura of the Great Way was doubled or not? After 3 days of fruitless exploration, Han Fei appeared in the Sea of Pearls again with the demonic essence of the cloud whale. Sure enough, at such a distance, the Gemini divine arts immediately became unstable. Han Fei felt a strong attraction. He had to return to the Scattered Stars Island immediately. When the body of black fog returned to within 10,000 kilometers of the Scattered Stars Island, the feeling of the collapse of the Gemini divine technique disappeared. When the black fog was about to rush to the mansion, Han Fei saw that the cloud whale on the Scattered Stars Island had just taken off and was only 100 kilometers away from him. He saw that the cloud whale was flying toward him. Han Fei wasn't in a hurry. He was now inexplicably curious about the cloud whale. He felt that this kind of creature didn't seem like a species from the yin-yang heaven at all. Tang Yen, where did you get this from? Although the cloud whale was huge, it was not slow at all. Swimming in the clouds was like a fish in water. Han Fei stepped to the cloud whale in black mist and saw that it was flying to the teleportation island with a lot of people on its back. These people were all people who had been strictly examined and determined to return to their hometown. In his later work, Han Fei also said that it wasn't that he didn't want them anymore, but that the 36 towns were too short of talents. Every soldier who returned from the Scattered Stars Island was definitely a famous figure in the 36 towns. Therefore, he should be happy to have such an opportunity. How comfortable would it be to go back and live a leisurely life? If he could teach his students and tell them stories, their lives would be much more complete. At this moment, someone was complaining, "Son of a bitch! I'm still healthy. I don't even understand why I'm being sent back." Someone laughed and scolded, "Don't you know why you're being sent back? Your foundation has been damaged and you can't make any progress. Are you going to stay here and die in one battle after another?" The man cursed, "But I'm still a junior hidden fisher. Am I not strong enough?" Someone laughed. "Okay. The problem is that General Han may think that it may be better for us to stay in the 36 towns and lead the younger generation to dig out talents. Don't forget that the Scattered Stars Island is about to be opened to the 36 towns. General Han is also preparing for a rainy day." Someone echoed, "In fact, General Han has a good idea. The casualty rate of the people from the 36 towns who came to the Scattered Stars Island is actually much higher than that of the Thousand-Star City. So what's the reason? Isn't it because the comprehensive strength of the 36 towns is not as good as that of the Thousand-Star City? Even the ordinary people of the Thousand-Star City live in a place with complete information. They have long known the existence of the Scattered Stars Island. Only the 36 towns have been hiding it, saying that this is a dangerous, unknown place. Even when we came to the island, we still hid it from us for a long time." Someone was speechless. "That's because we are really weak. If we had gone to the deep sea when we first came here, we would have died 10 times. But I still don't understand it. Why do you have to hide it from the 36 towns? If it's dangerous, why not just say it?" Someone said, "Why? It's because the 36 towns are weak and don't have the ability to help in the war. Then why should everyone be on tenterhooks all day long? On the contrary, taking the unknown place as a pursuit can stimulate the enthusiasm of the people of the 36 towns for cultivation." Someone sighed. "But now, the Sea Demon King City is coming out. The people of the 36 towns can no longer live in a dream. This time, a large number of strong masters have taken off their armor and returned to their hometown, which must have caused a shock. Han Fei didn't care about these people's discussion. In fact, they were all right. That was exactly what he thought. Just like when the City of Justice was first established, those surrounding towns, if they didn't have the support of strong masters, how could they rise quickly? Suddenly, Han Fei noticed that the cloud whale's eyes turned half a circle and fell on him. And when it saw him, the cloud whale slightly opened its mouth. It looked as if it was begging for food. Han Fei was shocked. What realm is the cloud whale in? How can it see my body of black fog? He had fed the cloud whale several times before. This guy should be able to recognize him. Although there were many strong masters on the Scattered Stars Island, there were probably not many people who fed it and communicated with it every time they saw it. Han Fei didn't say anything and didn't feed it. Otherwise, if a crab or lobster appeared out of thin air, these people on the back of the cloud whale would be scared to death. Although Han Fei didn't feed it, someone on the cloud whale's head said, the cloud whale opened its mouth. Does it want to eat? This gluttonous guy. While talking, someone took out a big squid. It was only a rare creature, only level 38. Naturally, it wasn't very powerful, but fortunately, it was relatively large. The person who spoke patted the cloud whale's head. Little cloud, come, open your mouth. Seeing that someone was feeding it, the cloud whale moved its eyes away from Han Fei, turned its body, bit the big squid into its mouth, and flew towards the teleportation island happily. Han Fei stood in the air, touched his chin and murmured, a legendary creature, and the kind that can't grow up? That's interesting. Han Fei didn't think much. He turned around and quickly returned to the general's mansion. After a moment, Han Fei pushed open the door of the general's mansion and shouted in a low voice, summon all inspectors. Come here for a meeting. The inspectors of the Scattered Stars Island were at least peak-level law enforcers. When Han Fei got the 9-star token, he was only a peak-level hidden fisher, which was specially given by Shueishenqi. Generally speaking, below the inspectors, there were only 3 positions, adjudicator, brigadier general and captain, which were already held by law enforcers. The positions below were held by hidden fishers. After a while, a total of 35 inspectors were in place and came to the general's mansion. Among them, 21 were explorers. When Han Fei saw these people for the first time, he was actually a little surprised. What surprised him was that there were more than 20 explorers on the Scattered Stars Island, but Shueishenqi said that some of them didn't hold any positions. Han Fei nodded slightly. He had indeed underestimated the Scattered Stars Island before. There were indeed many strong masters here. However, on second thought, no matter how many there were, there couldn't be more than 50, maybe only 30. Compared with the 1,000-star city or the Shuemu heaven, there were really too few. At this moment, Han Fei looked at these people and said, everyone, you have all been in your positions for many years. Since Marshal Shui trusts you, I naturally trust you as well. Next, I'm going to discuss ways to deal with the sea demons with Marshal Shui and the Venerables. This matter is quite confidential. So, in the future, unless you encounter something you can't solve on the Scattered Stars Island, don't send anything to me for the time being. Everyone was stunned and then realized that Han Fei was going to make a big move. Now on the Scattered Stars Island, there were as many as a dozen Venerables. With such a powerful force, even they felt that Han Fei wouldn't be idle. Sure enough, Han Fei had only been in office for a few days, and he had already begun to have ideas. Immediately, everyone responded, yes, Marshal Han. Han Fei nodded and looked at one of them. Where is Meng Liang from the Island Patrol? Meng Liang was also a little surprised. Why did Han Fei call him? However, Meng Liang immediately responded, yes, Marshal Han. What can I do for you? Han Fei said in a deep tone, although there are hundreds of thousands of soldiers who have returned to their hometown, it's still not enough for them to wake up the people living in their dreams in the 36 towns immediately. If you tell too many stories, the Scattered Stars Island will naturally have to do something. You can arrange for people to come to the Scattered Stars Island and negotiate with the mayors of the 36 towns. You can arrange for the heavenly talents in the towns to come to the Scattered Stars Island regularly to observe the battlefield. Your island patrol knows the various battlefields on the island the best. I'll leave this matter to you. Meng Liang couldn't help but be surprised. So urgent? The others were also taken aback. The purpose of Han Fei doing this was to wake up the 36 towns as soon as possible. However, no matter how much time was sped up, it always took time for people to grow up. Han Fei said leisurely, "If you don't think about the future, you will have immediate worries. You have to prepare for a rainy day. This is not a big move. If someone wants to tell a story, someone has to see it." Meng Liang immediately nodded. "Yes, Marshal Han." Han Fei nodded slightly and looked at everyone. "Okay, you can go now. Many people should have started school soon. Put down the monthly tickets in your hands and study hard." End of this chapter. Chapter 14-17. The Transverse Mountain. When Han Fei first came to the Scattered Stars Island, he had been hearing stories about the Transverse Mountain and felt that there must be many secrets hidden in this mountain range. At least, there was a secret that everyone knew. There was a bottomless pit in the Transverse Mountain. Where exactly did that bottomless pit lead to? No one could know. However, it would emit spirit awakening fluid. At that time, Han Fei wasn't qualified to go in at all. Now that he had become the Supreme Commander, he naturally had the right to inspect it. At this moment, Han Fei was standing outside this bottomless pit with a radius of more than 200 meters. Hundreds of meters around it, there were jagged rocks everywhere. Looking down, Han Fei found that the perception of the soul could be restricted in this cave. Therefore, even if he looked with his eyes, it would be clearer than his perception. Of course, even if it was a little clearer, this bottomless pit was unfathomable. In Han Fei's eyes, there was only darkness below. At this moment, not far behind Han Fei, Xue Shenqi's voice sounded. "After many investigations, people won't appear in the underground city if they go down from here." Han Fei couldn't help but look back. "How?" Xue Shenqi explained. "They left the sensing objects and then went to the underground city to look for it, but they didn't find it even once. You know, the underground city is actually not big, so this place doesn't lead to the underground city." Han Fei shrugged slightly. The Supreme Commanders of the past have controlled the Scattered Stars Island for so long, but they haven't found anything? How could he have the time to deal with this now? Immediately, Han Fei changed the topic. "So, do you think this bottomless pit has other secrets? In order to prevent problems from happening here, let all the explorers on the Scattered Stars Island live in the Transverse Mountain?" Han Fei had already known this when he just came back. After all, he was a top expert on the Scattered Stars Island. Many years ago, Han Fei was far from becoming an explorer, so he certainly didn't know this place. Han Fei's perception swept across the Transverse Mountain. There were as many as 500 law enforcers and explorers here. Of course, the vast majority were law enforcers. Han Fei asked suspiciously, "This Transverse Mountain is equivalent to a slightly more advanced Empyrean waterfall?" Xue Shenqi said lightly, "You can say so. They will stay here and collect the spirit awakening fluid that emerges from here." Looking at the wisp of spirit awakening fluid floating up from the depths of the bottomless pit, Han Fei raised his eyelids. Instead of saying anything to Xue Shenqi, he asked the old turtle, "Can you sense what's down there?" The old turtle said, "This emperor isn't omnipotent, I can't continue my perception." However, since spirit awakening fluid can be produced every day, it means that there is either some kind of great Tao, the remains of a powerhouse, or some kind of natural spirit treasure below. Otherwise, spirit awakening fluid can't be produced for no reason. Han Fei stopped asking and looked at Xue Shenqi. "I'm going to see. I may have to trouble Mr. Xue to help me deal with the military affairs on the island secretly." Xue Shenqi had said earlier that although he had temporarily retired as the Supreme Commander, he would not allow Han Fei to do whatever he wanted. If something went wrong, he would step in. At this moment, Xue Shenqi frowned. "We're going to see? Have you figured out the secret of the Empyrean waterfall?" Han Fei said, "The Star Tortoise said that it'll take at most 3 months. By then, I don't know if it can suppress it. Then what exactly is suppressed down there? I haven't figured it out yet." However, I can tell you one thing very clearly. That king's corpse can't allow anyone to break through to the king realm. Shui Shenqi's pupils suddenly constricted and he asked, "Are you sure?" Han Fei smiled. "I've set up a soundproof barrier around. Zhang Jihua and the others can't hear it." Shui Shenqi asked again, "Are you sure? This is not something you can joke about. Whether the corpse down there is valuable or not. It involves a lot of things." Han Fei nodded. "At least I'm very sure for now. But will there be any special changes after the corpse is born?" "I don't know yet." Shui Shenqi asked, "What exactly is down there?" Han Fei said with a smile, "Mr. Shui, why don't you let me keep it a secret for another 3 months?" Shui Shenqi took a deep look at Han Fei and didn't ask further. Instead, he said, "I can help you temporarily, but I need to know what you are going to do." Han Fei's lips curled up slightly. "There's nothing to hide. I'm going to spy on the 10,000 Demon Valley. This matter cannot be delayed. If it weren't for studying the corpse under the Empyrean waterfall, I would have already gone there." Shui Shenqi knew Han Fei's trump card, but he still frowned. The 10,000 Demon Valley should have the combat power of a peak-level venerable. "Are you sure you can investigate it?" Han Fei said with a smile, "Whether I can or not, at least I can guarantee my own safety." Shui Shenqi wasn't too worried about Han Fei's safety. In his heart, Han Fei was actually a heavenly talent born with a golden spoon in his mouth. Among all the descendants and heavenly talents in the Thousand-Star City, Shui Shenqi could only think of Cao Qiu if he had to think of a person who could be like Han Fei. Back then, the two of them were lucky enough to get together. However, Cao Qiu still failed in the competition for the sea-quelling painting. But so what? Cao Qiu's identity as a heavenly talent didn't change. The Cao family doted on him and paved the way for him. It was said that since the kid's seal was unlocked, his strength had soared crazily and he was invincible in the 1,000-star proving ground. Han Fei was more confident than Cao Qiu. Although Shui Shenqi didn't know who Han Guanshu had Han Guanshu seemed to have only one son. However, Han Guanshu seemed to have only one son, and it could be said that he had devoted everything to him. At this moment, there was Han Guanshu and Peaceful, who was known as a half-king. With such strength, who could kill Han Fei? The heavens really wanted him to die. The half-king realm was enough to be called the strongest combat power in the entire 1,000-star city. His strength was definitely on the same level as old scoundrel Chu Men. Shui Shenqi said lightly, "If you just want to investigate, don't spend too much time. You also know that the star turtle can't hold on for long. This war will break out sooner or later." Han Fei smiled and said, 3 days if I'm fast, 10 days if I'm slow. I'll definitely be back within 10 days. After saying hello to Shui Shenqi, when everyone thought Han Fei was still in the general's mansion, Han Fei had already gone 100,000 kilometers away. Here, Han Fei took out the venerable token. After all, it was not safe to go alone. He needed a bodyguard. However, as soon as he took out the venerable token, he saw Jing walk out of the void with a swish. At this moment, Jing was holding a skewer of grilled squid in her hand, and her mouth was greasy. While eating, she said, "Even without the venerable token, I already know your body of darkness, so I won't lose you." Han Fei grinned. "Is it delicious?" Jing nodded repeatedly. "I have to say, although the overall strength of the Yin-Yang heaven is not too strong, you really eat a lot. In the market, there's so much delicious food." Blah, blah, blah. As soon as Jing started talking, she couldn't stop talking. Han Fei interrupted, "Let's go to the sea demon's camp with me and take a look. If you're lucky, I'll let you taste the taste of a venerable in a few days." Han Fei didn't ask if old Han was there. Old Han's whereabouts had always been mysterious. Since he left the Scattered Stars prison, God knew where he had been all the time. However, he knew Han Fei's return very well, so he should know that Han Fei went to sea. One day later, in the deep sea waves, a pair of figures stood on the surface of the sea. Han Fei asked, "Jing, how wide is the perception range of a peak-level venerable and a half-king?" Here, Han Fei was stopped by Jing. Han Fei guessed something immediately, which was why he asked such a question. Jing thought, Han Fei's growth has reached a level that even she couldn't understand. She also knew that Han Fei was not a king's servant, but a king candidate, or even an heir. So she didn't hide it. She said, take me for example, when I was in the peak level, my perception range was actually about 20,000 kilometers. But in addition to perception, there is also a kind of premonition, which can be called intuition. This range could reach up to 50,000 miles. Premonitions weren't always accurate. If someone is particularly hostile to me and has reached the point of obsession, I may be able to perceive it if it is more than 50,000 kilometers. But the premise is that the person can't be too much stronger than me. Otherwise, even within 20,000 kilometers, they have a way to avoid my perception. Han Fei's eyes narrowed slightly. A peak-level venerable is already so strong? That's 50,000 kilometers. His current perception range is less than 10,000 kilometers. This is definitely not because his soul is not strong enough, or his talent is not high enough, but because he can't live as long as they do. As long as he lives long enough, Han Fei feels that it won't take him 100 years even if his soul is twice as strong. Han Fei took a breath. What about a half-king? Ning Jing said, a half-king? Well, the perception range starts from 50,000 kilometers. However, a half-king's perception of certain events may transcend space itself. For example, even if something happens 200,000 kilometers away, as long as you want to see it, you can see it. If you prepare to go somewhere in advance, although you can't perceive the place, you can directly teleport there. Plus, anyway, you can't show up, and you can't make too much noise. With your body of darkness, even a half-king can't easily detect you if they don't deliberately search for you. Who would have nothing better to do than to look for pure darkness in the darkness? First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 14:18. Han Fei was very familiar with the 10,000 Demon Valley. In order to steal from the 10,000 Demon Valley, he deliberately memorized the terrain of the entire 10,000 Demon Valley. However, Han Fei had never been to the Blood Demon Valley before. The main reason was that he wanted to break into the 10,000 Demon Valley, so he had no chance to go to the Blood Demon Valley. This time, Han Fei came here to investigate. Something must have changed in the 10,000 Demon Valley and the Blood Demon Valley. Just like in the battle on the Sea of Pearls that day, the 5 inhibitions of the Blood Sea appeared. Were they really Blue Feather's hidden trump cards? Blue Feather said so, but it was not necessarily true. Facing the human side, Blue Feather didn't say that they were his trump cards. Could it be that the Sea Demon King City sent them to him? Because of the 5 inhibitions of the Blood Sea, Han Fei's first goal was the Blood Sea Valley. He had to master the basic combat power of the sea demons first. Less than 50,000 kilometers away from the Blood Sea Valley, Han Fei said to the old turtle, "Old Yuan, I know your perception ability must be stronger than mine. You just haven't shown it yet. My soul power is not enough, and my perception can't hide from the real strong. So, it's up to you to investigate the enemy's situation." The old turtle was speechless. "So, you already had a plan when you were on the Scattered Stars Island? You've been plotting against me?" Han Fei smiled and said, "Old Yuan, we are already so familiar with each other. You should know me. Only when I am strong, invincible, and become a king can we live longer. And in the future, I may have a chance to find your sealed body. Think about it, are you willing to give up the body of an emperor?" The old turtle cursed, "Of course I don't want to give it up. But how can you be so kind?" Han Fei sneered. "If I become a king, do you think I will be afraid of the emperor realm? To tell you the truth, there are still many things I have to do in the future. Becoming a king is just my first step." The old turtle sneered. "Keep bragging. Wait until you become a king first." While mocking each other, the two reached a tacit understanding. Jing naturally didn't follow him because she was afraid that the enemy would have a half-king realm powerhouse discover her. In that case, it would be even harder for Han Fei to sneak in. After all, once the tracks of a half-monarch realm expert were discovered, the other party's experts would definitely pay attention to everything in the nearby waters. How could Han Fei have a chance when the perception of a powerhouse was sweeping wildly? If Han Fei sneaked in alone, once he encountered danger, he could take out the venerable token and set a location for himself. To be honest, Han Fei was scared too. If the other party had a half-king realm expert, even though they wouldn't have to worry about Jing or dying here, the other party's strategy and tactics would definitely be adjusted, and they would be more cautious when initiating a battle. At that time, once the war started, it was very likely that a great war would break out, and it was very likely that there would not be the so-called 3 months of preparation time. After all, the sea demons also knew that there were remains of kings on the Scattered Stars Island. What was a half-king doing here? It was definitely for the remains of a king tier. Therefore, on one hand, the enemy would be more cautious and send more powerful forces, and on the other hand, they would speed up the deployment of strategies and tactics to invade the Scattered Stars Island in advance. Therefore, Han Fei didn't let Jing follow him all the way. After that, it took Han Fei 10 hours to travel more than 50,000 kilometers before he slowly entered the Blood Sea Valley. Compared with the gorgeous 10,000 Demon Valley, there were exquisite seaweed decorations and all kinds of decorative caves. The Blood Sea Valley was more like a slum. Even if there were luminous seaweed decorations, most of them were in clusters. Between the cliffs of the valley, there were holes one after another, like a beehive. How many people were stuffed in them? Han Fei swam at an extremely slow speed in the Blood Sea Valley for more than 3 hours and found many unusual places. In fact, it was Old Yuan who found these unusual places. The old turtle kept explaining, the entire Blood Sea Valley is a large mountain range composed of 308 undersea mountains. Most of the places are relatively deep, the cliffs are relatively straight, and there are more deep valleys. There are a lot of people, from the Awakening Realm to the Sea Spirit Realm, and there are as many as 3 million people. Han Fei's eyelids twitched slightly. Fortunately, the Scattered Stars Island is twice as big as theirs. In fact, Han Fei's face had become very ugly, although he was still comforting himself. Han Fei knew that sea demons wouldn't go all out in a battle. They would drive endless marine creatures to attack the island, which was the most terrifying thing. Besides, these 3 million were just ordinary inferior manfish and red demons. In Han Fei's eyes, these were all creatures that hadn't fully evolved and weren't a threat. However, it was not a good thing for him, but it was not a good thing for the millions of soldiers on the Scattered Stars Island. In this 8 million kilometer wide Yin-Yang heaven, there must be many half-mermaids and even some powerful creatures that hadn't transformed. Because there was no royal city in the Yin-Yang heaven before, these powerful creatures weren't completely unified. With the appearance of the royal city, there should be a lot of these independent cultivators gathered. Therefore, although Han Fei's face was ugly, he was still glad in his heart. 3 million people, he could fight. He didn't panic at all. The inferior manfish and red demons were inferior to humans in terms of weapons, equipment, and cultivation techniques. Therefore, there was no reason for the human side to lose. However, after a moment, the old turtle said, 3 venerables and 38 Tao-seeking state demons have been found. Han Fei immediately asked, how strong are the venerables? The old turtle nodded. 2 beginner and 1 intermediate. Phew, Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief. Not bad, not bad. As for the 38 Tao-seeking state demons, Han Fei was startled. But it also confirmed his conjecture. The 5 strengths of the Blood Sea were all fake. These were all strong masters that suddenly appeared. In the Blood Sea Valley alone, the number of Tao-seeking state demons was almost as many as the number of explorers on the entire Scattered Stars Island. Fortunately, the 5 strengths of the Blood Sea Valley were all fake. These were all strong masters that suddenly appeared. Fortunately, the explorers of the big clans and the 7 major sects had come, which could be regarded as a combat force. However, Han Fei immediately became alert. This was just the Blood Demon Valley. The half-mermaids and half-mermaids of the 10,000 Demon Valley had always looked down on the inferior manfish and red demons. It could even be said to be discrimination. Now, even the overall strength of the Blood Sea Valley was so strong. What about the 10,000 Demon Valley? Perhaps because there were not many experts in the Blood Demon Valley, no one noticed that a shadow had wandered in. Han Fei sneered. These sea demons are really careless. Although the 10,000 Demon Valley is only 20,000 kilometers away from the Blood Sea Valley, if this place is attacked by a strong master, there will definitely be heavy casualties. The old turtle sneered. As long as the other party has a half-king realm, oh no. As long as there is a peak-level venerable, 20,000 kilometers will be covered in the blink of an eye. Unless your father and peaceful attack at the same time and flatten this place. But even so, a half-king realm can't sweep 10,000 kilometers with one blow. Han Fei said perfunctorily, I'm just saying. In fact, when the old turtle made this proposal, Han Fei also had this idea. If he had a way to lead the sea demons to attack this place, the more than 3 million ordinary sea demons here would definitely be able to heavily damage the 10,000 Demon Valley. After all, no matter how powerful the 10,000 Demon Valley was, it couldn't be more powerful than the White Bell's royal city. If such a large number of troops were wiped out, what if they fought again in the future? He could only rely on the people of the 10,000 Demon Valley. The old turtle suddenly said solemnly, Han Fei, I advise you not to do this. Although you humans and sea demons are enemies, sea demons are also creatures in this world. It's fine if you kill hundreds or thousands of people occasionally. Even if you don't do it yourself, nothing will happen to you at all. However, do you know how terrifying the blood tide will be when millions of creatures die? Han Fei was stunned by the old turtle's words. What do you mean? The old turtle asked, Let me ask you, are sea demons really bad people? Han Fei was taken aback by this question. From a racial point of view, sea demons were certainly ferocious. Besides, according to the story of the prophecy Steel, sea demons seemed to destroy all the races on purpose. However, in the real society of sea demons, there was actually no essential difference between their society and that of human beings. At most, they had different customs and living conditions. As for ferociousness, of course, not all sea demons were ferocious. Some sea demons were upright. Perhaps, it was just that everyone had different standpoints. Han Fei looked at the vast sea and said, In this boundless sea, more than 3 million creatures die every day. You are a demon emperor. Why do you care about the life and death of these 3 million sea demons? The old turtle said, Of course I don't care. What I care about is that this may become your karma. The Tao of heaven and the karma of the world go round and round. You can sneak attack now and suddenly kill these 3 million ordinary sea demons. In the future, if a sea demon master slaughters millions of humans because of this, do you think this karma has anything to do with you? Can you still have a firm heart and go straight to the great Tao? Han Fei was horrified. According to the old turtle, it seemed that he really couldn't do it. Of course, he could do it, but after doing it, if there was a price, he didn't want to bear it. Of course, this was also the rule between humans and sea demons. Maybe occasionally, one side could take advantage of a loophole and kill some of the other side's heavenly talents. However, blatantly killing millions of the other side's weak people? It had never happened in history. Han Fei calmed himself down. He could set up an enemy once in a while, but he couldn't kill 3 million of them indiscriminately. Even if there was no punishment from the Tao of heaven, it would infuriate the sea demons. At that time, if both sides didn't stop, this battle would be messed up. Han Fei said lightly, Got it. In fact, it's because I'm not strong enough. If I become a king and completely wipe out the 10,000 Demon Valley, who will retaliate then? The old turtle said leisurely, The premise is that you become a king first. Han Fei didn't say anything and swam in the direction of the 10,000 Demon Valley. But Han Fei's goal was not to go straight to the 10,000 Demon Valley. From Qixue Huan's memory, Han Fei saw that an abyssal crack had appeared between the 10,000 Demon Valley and the Blood Sea Valley. A strong master walked out of that crack. This crack was Han Fei's main investigation target this time. He didn't dare to speed up. It took Han Fei half a day to quietly reach the periphery of the abyssal crack. It wasn't that Han Fei saw the crack, but that there was a turbulent flow of demonic energy here. The old turtle said, "There is a crack 2,000 kilometers to your left. There is an advanced venerable and 2 intermediate venerables guarding it." Han Fei was shocked. This place was a level higher than the Blood Sea Valley. Besides, this place was closer to the 10,000 Demon Valley, and there were 3 venerables guarding it. It could be seen that the sea demons attached great importance to this place. With Han Fei's current strength, he could hunt ordinary junior venerables. Once he reached the intermediate level, there was a 90% chance that he couldn't kill them. After all, there was an insurmountable gap between an explorer and a venerable. Even an ordinary venerable's comprehensive strength was not comparable to that of a semi-venerable. Han Fei also knew that the reason why he could hunt and kill a junior venerable was entirely because of the golden body. If he hadn't cultivated the indestructible golden body in advance and improved his strength in all aspects, it would have been extremely difficult for him to hunt and kill a junior venerable. Han Fei nodded. "Let's go and have a look." Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1419. Submarine crevices were actually a common landform. Not to mention dozens or hundreds of kilometers wide, even millions of kilometers wide. These underwater crevices were filled with myriad scenes, and there were all kinds of strange creatures living in the trenches. At this moment, Han Fei swam slowly. Under normal circumstances, no one would pay attention to him. At least, even the advanced venerable couldn't detect Han Fei's black mist form. That was why Han Fei dared to go deeper boldly. Finally, after he moved forward bit by bit, he saw the crevice with his own eyes. When Han Fei saw it with his own eyes, he found that this place had been enveloped by arrays. Around the crevice, there were tens of thousands of arrays. On the arrays, a void crack flashed from time to time. A large amount of demonic chi and spirit awakening fluid seeped out of those cracks. Whenever these things came out, they would be gathered by an invisible force. Hiss, Han Fei suddenly gasped. "Old Yuan, that's spirit awakening fluid, isn't it? Is there a king in the place where the crevice connects?" The old turtle said casually, "It's hard to say. I didn't sense the aura of a king. But even if there is a king, it can't come here. Otherwise, there will be no place for you human beings." Han Fei observed here for a whole day. He was willing to wait here because he wanted to see what kind of person would come out of this crevice. Bam! Just when Han Fei was wondering if he should go to the 10,000 Demon Valley to explore and then come back, suddenly, there was the sound of a seal being broken. Then he saw a big shrimp clinging to the cliff wall and jumping out of the crevice. However, there was no intact shell on the shrimp soldier's body. Obviously, it was seriously injured from that side. The corner of Han Fei's eyes twitched, and he immediately frowned. A peak-level Dao-seeking big demon came out just like that? It could be seen that even if this crevice wasn't connected to the capital, there must be a lot of strong masters there. The moment the shrimp soldier appeared, it looked around and immediately said respectfully, "Greetings, Master Yuchuan, Venerable Sun, and Venerable Qin." The advanced venerable said calmly, "I was wondering who it was. It turns out that you're here. When will the experts in the city arrive?" The shrimp soldier transformed into his human form and hurriedly bowed. "Lord Yuchuan, the passage is still not very stable. Our king is reinforcing the seal. My king said that in the next month, no one will come." "But why is that?" Qian Yulio said, "Because Lord Qian Lu is coming in person." The advanced venerable suddenly stood up. "Really? Lord Clearflow is at the Half-King realm. Can he really pass through this narrow passage?" Qian Lu replied, "My lord, it's precisely because the passage is narrow that His Majesty sent Lord Qing Lu over." At that time, Lord Clearstream wanted to use a secret technique to try and widen the two paths. This way, we can attract more experts from the city. Really? The 3 venerable ones looked at each other. At present, the 10,000 Demon Valley did not have an expert at the level of a demi-monarch. Although Bluefeather had said that there hadn't been a venerable powerhouse on the Scattered Stars Island for many years. However, were there any semi-king level experts in the Thousand Star City? No one knew. Although it was impossible to become a king in the Yin Yang Heaven, It didn't mean that it was impossible to become a demi-monarch. Moreover, in the sneak attack on the Sea of Pearls and the Scattered Stars Island a few days ago, at least one human peak-level venerable appeared. Moreover, the peak-level venerable of the 10,000 Demon Valley said that there would be a mysterious aura that might also be a peak-level venerable. Because of this, Venerable Chao Xian, who was the current peak-level venerable of the 10,000 Demon Valley, gave up attacking the island and temporarily retreated. Anyway, in his opinion, the return of the royal city was a foregone conclusion. The reason why he wanted to take action now and take down the Scattered Stars Island was that he wanted to make contributions. However, how many tens of thousands of years had the sea demons and humans been fighting for? If it was easy to take them down, they would have taken them down long ago. Therefore, after discovering that the human race was not weak, Chao Xian chose to lie dormant for the time being, accumulate strength, and plan to invade again. Ziyu Chuan remembered that in the war between humans and sea demons, no one knew where the king died. The sea demon king hid in the Yin-Yang heaven. After so many years, the new king had passed the tribulation, and it was the day when the royal city returned. The king realm cultivators couldn't come over for the time being, but if a half-king realm cultivator came, at least in the Yin-Yang heaven, they could be described as invincible. Ziyu Chuan shouted, "Okay, I already know. Yu Sun, take him to the 10,000 Demon Valley first and report this matter to Master Chao Xian." Among the three, one of them got up, stretched out his hand, and left with the shrimp soldier. Han Fei hid in the dark and quietly heard all these words. Presumably, since the crack was surrounded by restrictive formations, they did not expect anyone else to come here. Besides, they spoke in the sea demon language, which humans couldn't understand at all. But when Han Fei heard the word, "my king," he was shocked. Sure enough, it was the Sea Demon Royal City. The Sea Demon Royal City on the Yin-Yang heaven was about to reappear. The old turtle said, "Look, they have a king." Han Fei said grumpily, "I'm not deaf. So what if there is a king? He can't come over. Otherwise, if he comes over alone, who in the entire thousand-star city can be his match?" Han Fei suddenly turned his eyes to the crack on the seabed. "Old Yuan, do you think we can blow up this teleportation array?" The old turtle's voice was leisurely. If someone from the Sea Demon Royal City can come over, it means that some kind of seal has been broken. Or rather, the entrance is already there. How can you blow it up? Han Fei shrugged. "I have billions of demonic stones. It's just a passage." Han Fei fell silent after saying the second half of the sentence. This kind of spatial passage seemed to be only related to space. Compared with it, things like spiritual energy explosion might be too low level. Han Fei calculated in his heart. The other party won't send a half-king realm cultivator over until a month later. Does that mean that there isn't one now? In other words, Peaceful should be the strongest person at the moment. Han Fei was tempted. Although the Life Queen had told him not to help him easily, and she also told him that the path to becoming a king was rarely completed with the help of others, however, this was very tempting. Suppressing his excitement, Han Fei decided to go to the 10,000 Demon Valley first. As for whether he should let Peaceful help? Anyway, Peaceful was 100,000 kilometers away. After he finished his investigation, he would have a month to make a long-term plan. After another half a day, Han Fei finally came to the familiar 10,000 Demon Valley. Although he hadn't stayed in this place for a long time, he had carefully explored this place before. There were 100,000 households in the core circle. How many people were there in the bottom of the abyss? He didn't know. After all, he didn't have the ability to investigate back then. To Han Fei's slight surprise, the Sea Demon Colosseum, the most popular place for sea demons, was actually closed. Besides, he didn't know if it was his illusion, but he found that there seemed to be fewer people in the 10,000 Demon Valley. Could it be that they were all concentrating on cultivation? Han Fei didn't stop for long. He crossed the canyon passage, passed through the huge half-mermaid statue, and came to the ring core area. Back then, Han Fei lived in the outermost layer of this ring, and Yu Ji lived next door. Now that he thought about it, he was a little naive at that time, thinking that this place was where heavenly talents lived. After all, when he pretended to be Yufei, he was only a hanging fisher, not even a hidden fisher. Now, Han Fei found that only the outermost layer was inhabited by demonization state creatures. The deeper they went, the stronger the half-mermaids became. Crossing this ring, above the innermost ring pillar, Han Fei sensed that there was a temple hidden in the darkness, floating in the sky like the control center of the entire 10,000 Demon Valley. That place was filled with demonic aura. It was unknown whether it was gathering demonic aura or releasing demonic aura. The old tortoise said, "All right, although most people can't see your current body, it's still not enough. However, that was only relative. If you happen to be discovered by a peak stage venerable, even if Jing Er wants to save you, you might not be able to escape." Han Fei was silent. "What did you feel?" The old turtle said, "There's indeed a top-grade venerable one here. It's the one we met in the Sea of Pearls. Just now, the shrimp soldier was reporting." "Oh, it's worth noting that in addition to one peak stage venerable, there are 3 advanced venerables and as many as 6 mid-level venerables. I'm afraid that they're much stronger than the Scattered Stars Island. There isn't even one advanced venerable on the Scattered Stars Island. But here, there are already 4. Han Fei looked awful. 1 peak stage venerable, 4 advanced venerables, and 6 or 7 mid-level venerables. Han Fei asked, "What about the junior ones?" The old turtle said, "The junior ones don't seem to be here. I didn't see them." "They're not here?" Han Fei immediately noticed that something was wrong. There were intermediate and advanced venerables in the 10,000 Demon Valley. How could there be no junior venerables? He had already killed 2 of them. Did the 10,000 Demon Valley just happen to have these 2? The old turtle said, "I haven't found them yet. However, there aren't many people in the 10,000 Demon Valley. As far as I can see, there are less than 100,000 people. That's impossible." Han Fei immediately denied it. He had stayed here before. It was impossible that the number of people had decreased by at least hundreds of thousands in just a dozen years. Immediately, Han Fei's face changed drastically. The junior venerables are not here, and a large number of half-mermaids are not here. There may be more than a few intermediate and advanced venerables. There must be something wrong. Suddenly, Han Fei seemed to think of something and said, "Old Yuan, what are the strength of these half-mermaids in the 10,000 Demon Valley?" The old turtle said, "You may not believe me when I say it. There are probably less than 100,000 people in this place. Half of them are in the sea demon realm. Something must have happened to them, right?" "What?" Han Fei's face suddenly changed. "Damn, it's more than something. This is a big deal." Even if he used his toes to think, it was impossible for the myriad Demon Valley to have only 100,000 people. And among these 100,000 people, there are actually 50,000 Sea Demon Realm experts? That's equivalent to 50,000 hidden fishers? This ratio, damn it, are you kidding me? Han Fei immediately shouted, "Not good. Old Yuan, something big has happened." Chapter 1420. At this time, there were only 100,000 people left in the 10,000 Demon Valley. Besides, half of these 100,000 people were Sea Demon Realm powerhouses. Han Fei didn't feel good at all. This was absolutely impossible for the 10,000 Demon Valley in the past. Think about the White Shell Royal City. Damn, the White Shell Royal City had only produced 100,000 sea spirits after so many years of operation. Good heavens, how many years had it been since I left the Scattered Stars Island? With a swish, 50,000 Sea Demon Realm powerhouses suddenly appeared. Did they fall from the sky? Han Fei thought, the 10,000 Demon Valley definitely doesn't have the ability to create so many Sea Demon Realm powerhouses. Or, the 10,000 Demon Valley has opened up a king's secret realm? There are infinite resources inside, and cultivation speed is amazing. Either that or these people had come out from the crack. Han Fei burst into fury. "Old Yuan, where are the 50,000 sea demons?" The old turtle asked, "What do you want to do?" "Don't worry. I'm not stupid enough to slaughter all the sea demons in their base camp. I need to catch a person to see where the people of the 10,000 Demon Valley have gone. And how did they grow so fast? In the end, the old turtle pointed to the direction of the cultivation canyon in the 10,000 Demon Valley. Han Fei jumped over without hesitation. He had already walked through the 72-floor soul realm. The cultivation canyon had no secret to him at all. In just a quarter of an hour, Han Fei came to an ordinary demon realm outside the 72-floor soul realm. This demon realm was a place to cultivate the soul. Han Fei quietly sneaked in. Generally speaking, even if the other party had a king, they generally wouldn't go into the cultivation's secret realm to observe everyone. Han Fei just took a few steps randomly, and with a thought, the void lines directly seized a half-mermaid who was cultivating. Han Fei's realm and strength were too much higher than this half-mermaid's. Therefore, the moment the half-mermaid was controlled by Han Fei, he couldn't even open his eyes and couldn't control his soul. Deep in his heart, Han Fei could even feel the horror in his soul. This time, Han Fei's soul-searching technique finally came in handy. Since Han Fei deduced the awesome soul-searching technique, he had never searched the soul of a half-mermaid. This time, the half-mermaid was still in a state of cultivation. Han Fei scanned with his soul and felt that part of his consciousness had dived directly into the half-mermaid's consciousness world. Shwa shwa shwa. Tens of thousands of pictures appeared in Han Fei's perception. For example, this half-mermaid was named Ufit. For example, this half-mermaid was a butterfly fish. For example, from the time this half-mermaid successfully evolved to the time it entered the 10,000 Demon Valley for the first time, it had been instilled with the belief that human beings should be killed. Han Fei ignored the unimportant information one by one. Soon, Han Fei discovered a different battlefield in the depths of the half-mermaid's consciousness. On a certain cultivation night a few years ago, Ufa was cultivating in the cultivation canyon as usual. At that time, he was only at the high level of the demonization realm and was not very strong. On that day, a loud noise and a strong earthquake brought countless half-mermaids back from their cultivation. A terrifying pressure appeared out of thin air, causing everyone to be unable to move a muscle. All the half-mermaids were trembling in their hearts, fearing that this was a sneak attack from a human powerhouse. But immediately afterward, a phantom stood proudly in the void. The man was bathed in brilliance. Under the divine brilliance, the man said, "My king has come to this world to thank the 10,000 Demon Valley for fighting with the human race over the years and suffering heavy casualties. He has opened a holy realm for cultivation, and all creatures above the demonization realm can enter this realm to cultivate." Blue Feather immediately knelt in front of the holy light. "Thank you, my king. I will do my best to defeat the human race." But he heard the man continue, "Oh, Blue Feather, my king is grateful for your great contribution to our Sea Clan, so he told me that you and other Tao-seeking powerhouses of the 10,000 Demon Valley can all cultivate in the Holy Realm." With that, the man waved his hand, and a mountain in the center of the 10,000 Demon Valley shattered. Under the earth vein, a golden light rushed into the sky, and a big golden fish rushed out and turned into a human figure in the blink of an eye. Han Fei read Ufa's memory and saw this scene clearly. As soon as the man appeared, he half knelt on the ground. "Icarus, thank you, my king, for unlocking the seal." Above the sky, the voice was indifferent. "Icarus, 1,800 years ago, you were defeated and almost ruined the foundation of the 10,000 Demon Valley. Now, my king has come to this world. Considering that you have become a venerable and have guarded the 10,000 Demon Valley for more than 1,000 years, I will allow you to atone for your mistakes. Don't let my king down." The man shouted to the sky, "Icarus, I will go through fire and water. If I fail again this time, I will kill myself to thank my king." Han Fei was stunned. 1,800 years ago, this man almost caused the destruction of the 10,000 Demon Valley? But 1,800 years ago, wasn't that Tang Yan's era? It seemed that a world-shaking battle had broken out, leading to the destruction of the royal city. Not only did the sea demons stop fighting, but the human race also suffered heavy losses. Even Tang Yan himself gave up the position of the supreme commander of the Scattered Stars Island and went to find the location of the royal city. The miraculous scene on that day was more or less what it looked like. Except for the guy wrapped in the holy light, it seemed that only one venerable jumped out from the beginning to the end. In Han Fei's experience, this was undoubtedly an act. Obviously, that person had made an agreement with Blue Feather and the others in advance. Of course, Han Fei couldn't directly see the strength of that person from his memory. However, from this person's words, he could get a few key pieces of information. One was a saint realm. This should be a place with extremely abundant resources that could quickly help these half-mermaids improve their realms. The other was a newly surrendered king. What was a newly surrendered king? That was just arrived. Could it be that there was no king in this city in the past? But now it did. From this information, it could be concluded that this sea demon royal city was not in the Yin-Yang heaven, nor had anything to do with the Waterwood heaven. There was only one result, the Wall of Death, which was the Chaotic Sea. This sea demon royal city could only be in the Chaotic Sea. Han Fei continued to search. After that night, the 10,000 Demon Valley was in an uproar. In the following days, the 10,000 Demon Valley restricted the sea demons from going out. All the exits were blocked. After 7 days, 6 super venerables that Han Fei had never seen before suddenly appeared in the 10,000 Demon Valley. Together, they carved a huge array, almost covering the entire sky above the 10,000 Demon Valley. Han Fei saw from Yu-Fei's memory that it was clearly a huge teleportation array, and it was a directional teleportation array. For an array master like Han Fei, how could he not even see a directional teleportation array? Han Fei even saw some more complicated things from this directional teleportation array. For example, this teleportation array was mixed with some defensive arrays and soul-driving arrays. However, when Han Fei saw this, he had a bad feeling in his heart. The Sea Demon Venerable was not a fool. Why would he make such a big teleportation array for no reason? Sure enough, Blue Feather's voice shook the entire 10,000 Demon Valley. Attention, everyone! You are all outstanding disciples of our 10,000 Demon Valley. At the command of my king, I will tell you a piece of shocking news. The Sea Demon Royal City is about to return, and my king is about to return. Before my king returns, he will grant you an unparalleled holy land. In this realm, there are countless opportunities. In the Holy Land trial, you can only leave after reaching the Sea Demon realm. Everyone get ready to enter. When he got here, Han Fei had a question. If one could only leave after reaching the Sea Demon realm, then why were there still 50,000 people in the 10,000 Demon Valley who hadn't reached the Sea Demon realm? However, on second thought, Han Fei understood. Those who were incapable, responsible for buying things, refining, and poor talents as servants were probably ordered to stay. In other words, some people missed the time. Because under normal circumstances, sea demons could leave the 10,000 Demon Valley and go out to hunt. Those who were hunting outside were definitely not a small number. Originally, they went out to hunt desperately. However, the others just sat at home and enjoyed benefits from the sky. When they came back, the teleportation array must have been closed. Otherwise, how much would it cost to maintain such a large teleportation array all the time? Its opening time must also be paid attention to. At that moment, Han Fei saw millions of half-mermaids and half-mermaids rushing to the array, which was really shocking. Han Fei was quite calm. In fact, he had expected this. What was the 10,000 Demon Valley like? Didn't he know? How could there be so many sea demons all of a sudden? The path of cultivation, to put it bluntly, was the same as that of the Zerg clan. Only a fairly large population base could give birth to some extraordinary strong masters. Needless to say, there were 50,000 people in the Sea Demon realm, so the number of people who broke through to the Sea Spirit realm in the Holy Land was less than 1%, right? There were still 500 sea spirits. After all, this was equivalent to a welfare secret realm. For those whose strength had been suppressed, it was normal for their strength to advance by leaps and bounds after obtaining a great opportunity. Even if the number of sea spirits born was less than 1%, there should be at least 1/1000 or 1/10,000. The population base of the 10,000 Demon Valley was so large. If there were millions of sea demons, there would be hundreds of sea spirits. That would be strange. Han Fei followed Yufa's dream, entered the teleportation array, and arrived at an unknown sea area. This place was covered by fog and strong winds. Han Fei was surprised. Why is this place so familiar? The periphery of the Wall of Death? Han Fei had confirmed that this was outside the Wall of Death. In the Waterwood Sky, when the three forces gathered outside the Wall of Death, they encountered such a scene when they fought for resources. When they arrived at this place, a venerable that Han Fei was familiar with appeared. That person was the venerable named Icarus, and there seemed to be other venerables. Ufa and the others were taken to a place. Han Fei took a breath of cold air. A crack? Yes, in the place between heaven and earth outside the Wall of Death, Han Fei saw a huge crack. The army of 1,000,000 sea demons lined up and walked towards the crack. Son of a bitch, did they go inside the Wall of Death? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.